they'd be waiting.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning at our budget meetings. We'll go ahead and get started. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Addison? Here. Gray?
Here.
She is. I confirm that.
Johnston?
Here.
Moore?
Here.
Orr?
Here.
Black?
Here. Thank you very much. I'd just like to, before we really get started, excuse Council President Brown for a few minutes. His son has a graduation at school, and so he'll be here. It started at 9 o'clock, and so he'll be here as quickly as he can get here. So with that, Joyce.
All right. Joyce Stroshine, Chief Financial Officer for the city, and today we're wrapping up the department presentations. We're going to begin with sanitation, and with me I have Arlen Rasmussen, who's the sanitation superintendent.
Good morning. The mission of the sanitation department is to improve the quality of life for the citizens of Pocatello, providing efficient and cost-effective refuse removal and recycling services. And that's something we take pretty seriously down there. We are a very service-oriented department, and when we get calls, we want to be able to respond. And I think we do a good job at that. Some of the key services we provided in FY16, I will go down the FY16 totals. You can see the comparisons to FY15 on the right. We hauled 44,819 tons of solid waste. We serviced 20,187 96-gallon carts. Those are the green residential carts. We handled 1,185 commercial accounts. In our roll-off division, this is one that really moves around a lot for us. We did 4,220 construction roll-off boxes. Our 3-yard temporary service was 3,477. Those are the little gray ones that we set out to the residents. We serviced 13,920 recycle carts, and out of those recycle carts we hauled 2,250 tons of material. In our yard waste program, we went from 600 to 700 yard waste carts, and the increase of that was 409 tons to 332 tons. So we have had increases all the way down through every service that we offer. The public uses us a lot, particularly in our roll-offs and our temporary services, which are things that are difficult for us to plan for because we do not know when somebody's going to call us and say, hey, we're going to clean out our garage or we're going to do yard work. So we need to be able to respond to that. In our output summary, I've broken down the number of employees and which divisions that they work in. We have 41 full-time employees in the sanitation department. We also utilize 4 seasonals. In our administration division, we have 4. The commercial division, we have 16. Our residential division has 7. The weld shop has 2. Maintenance division has 5, roll-off division has 4, and the curbside recycling has 3. And as I said before, we utilize 4 seasonal employees as fill-in as needed. Any questions so far? In our output summary and on our capital assets, and this is really the infrastructure and the heart and soul of our department. It's people and it's trucks. That's how we do what we do. So this is kind of a breakdown of what we have. We have in our commercials, we have 9. Our commercial and residential roll-offs, we have 6 trucks. The residential side loaders are 14, which is by far our biggest fleet. And we have 2 of the little retrievers, which are the ones that we use to do the one-way streets, the alleys, the little strip malls, the places we can't get our big trucks into. And we have 2 of those. Some of our key accomplishments this year is the yard waste program was expanded by 100 residents with no increases in department personnel. Increases in the residential, commercial, and roll-off divisions have all been absorbed using current personnel and equipment. So we're just, getting all these increases done with what we currently have. We are still responding to our request for services within 24 hours or sooner. We monitor and respond to improperly disposed of items like paint, tires, appliances, couches, mattresses, things that people throw out in places they shouldn't be throwing them. So we spend a lot of time doing that.
Question.
Yes.
If we experience some growth, you had 100 more residences this last year. Could
Correct.
you substantially absorb another 100, 200 without changing?
Depending on where they're at, see, that's the route densities, where these houses are really matter a lot to us. The trucks are capable of doing about 700 houses a day in a perfectly laid out route. So, like, if we're doing Jefferson and that Alameda area, they can clip right along. If we're doing increases, say, up on Johnny Creek or up in the Satterfield area where the lots are bigger, the density's not as high, the productivity of the trucks goes down. So, in general, 100 houses, depending on how they were spread out, we could probably handle. If we start talking about 1,000, then yeah, that would have a definite impact on us.
Additional equipment needed as well as
Absolutely, and personnel. Yes, the department is about 99% of what we can handle right now.
Okay.
So if it wasn't for our seasonals, we would already be asking for full-time employees. The rate study calls for full-time employees in 2016. We found ways around it through some cross-training and reorganization of our routes, and was able to not have to do that in 2016. But
We appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
thank you.
Well,
But-
and something to keep in mind, when we look at their reserves, part of the reason why they have additional reserves is for those unexpected things. And so if you have a big increase in need or volume, that you have the reserves to answer that call at that time. That's why they're there. And so even though they don't have people on hand, they would have the ability, funding-wise, to accomplish what they need to accomplish.
And I would also add to that, the same with our equipment. It is, the department has several functions. Like when you have development, it kind of comes in two phases for us. You have the construction aspect of the development, which is usually fast and furious, involves roll-off trucks and that sort of thing, and boxes and that sort of stuff. And then once the construction phase is over, then you have what we would call the routine service of the facility, which is very easy to predict. It's very easy to budget, plan for. So it kind of comes in two phases, and there's two different styles of equipment that we need to deal with that. Construction stuff is usually roll-offs and roll-off boxes. Service levels for like restaurants is dumpsters and rear loaders. So, looking at any large developments that might be in the future, I would start looking at expanding our fleet, but I wouldn't be buying new trucks. I think what I would do would probably hang on to our trade-ins and kind of see where the development is going, because we do not know until they're doing it exactly what kind of services these businesses are going to want. So to go out and buy a lot of new equipment that you may or may not use, to me, I think the better option would be to hang on to our trades, maybe expand our fleet and do it that way, and deal with any big expansions that way. And then we're only talking about personnel instead of $270,000 for a new garbage truck that we may or may not use.
So for a while, these, if you get a big development, but the infill's real slow and it's sporadic,
Right.
one house and then 300 yards, another house.
Right.
That really curtails your productivity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a good example of that is our yard waste program. Currently, we're running just a little over 700 carts, and we do it in 2 days, but it takes 2 trucks to do it because they are so spread out that we can't concentrate in an area. Whereas in a residential area, in a geographical spot, the trucks are easily capable of doing 700 a day each. So, concentration, route density matters to us. So spreading them out is not good. I mean, it's part of development. It is what it is. But as far as productivity, spreading them out is not good.
So if you look at the yard waste, there are 2 components. One is that we're reusing stuff. The other one is it cost effective? Because if you're using 2 trucks 2 days, and you're not taking that much out of the landfill itself, is it that productive?
From that aspect, it probably does not pay for itself at this point. But as with anything, any of the programs that we develop, as it gets more and more, it starts to reap the benefits of it. So for us, I think once we hit a tipping point, which tentatively we've put around that 1,000, 1,200 resident number, that we would probably start looking at going to a single truck running it 5 days a week. And set it up just like the recycling or the residential trash routes, and have, like, for the residents on trash day, they set out their recycle cart, their trash cart, and their yard waste cart all at once. And we just break it down. But at this point, we do not have the route density to do that.
So what is our holdup on that? Are we just not recruiting enough people, or are we not capable?
Currently, it's the Bannock County landfill. They limit how many yard waste carts we will put out. They have a certain amount of space up there, and they calculate how much tonnage that can be hauled in, and that's who determines what our carts are.
And what are they doing with the yard waste? Are they composting up there? Is that what they're doing?
Yes, they run a windrow process up there, and then they sell it.
So do they have a rate that goes through that and turns to compost?
I believe they're doing it with front end loaders.
Really?
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they use front end loaders.
The city has a fair amount of ground around town. Maybe we start looking at doing our own yard waste composting.
We kind of, us and
I'm sure you did look at that.
Yeah, us and WPC have kind of did a preliminary look at that, because one of the conversations that we had last year was development of the property around the airport that WPC currently uses for biosolids, and I don't want to jump in on John in here, but we did some preliminary look at this. It is certainly feasible. The technology to use biosolids in a yard waste program is proven technology.
Oh, yeah.
So it is certainly feasible. We don't have any solid costs yet, or we should, if you guys want to go down this path, we should do a study session and present.
Well, I think we should.
Okay.
And I have a bit of experience and expertise in this, so I'd be more than happy to help you guys.
We could certainly put something to do a study session on it and tell you what we do know. Like I said, it's proven technology. It's certainly possible to do that, and there would be probable benefits to both sides, to the public and to WPC. But a cost analysis hasn't been done yet. So,
well, I've always thought that the recycling that the county does, the composting, I've heard that they can't get rid of it.
That is part of the problem. Yes.
And to me, then give it away. There's ways in your community that you could do. You could provide composting for neighborhoods. You could, there's a lot of things to do with that. And as long as you're not putting it in the landfill, give it away.
I wouldn't even be opposed to putting it in the landfill as ground cover, right? Because you're hauling ground cover anyway for the landfill.
Or soil amendment. We have highly calciferous soils here that are difficult to grow things on at times. And if you can put a half inch or inch of this down underneath sod going in, it makes a huge difference on its stability and color and life and everything else.
Yeah, I think one of the things that to keep in mind, that any of these types of services like the composting or the recycling in general isn't necessarily always going to be a money-making operation. It's an environmental thing for the most part, and so you got to kind of weigh that out. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't always the cheapest thing. So,
because if you take a load of yard waste to the county, they still charge the city a dump fee, don't they?
Not currently.
Not on the yard waste.
Starting in October, that will change.
Then this is a good time to do the study session.
That is a little further into my presentation, but there are some changes on the horizon.
If this county isn't dependable to get us to a good flow, an economical flow, then maybe we need to be the master of our own destiny. You know, because if we could, 100 carts a year based on what the last year's performance was, you know, we're 3 years out from your 1,000.
Well, they have raised it already for FY17 to 1,000, so we're at 1,000 right now. I mean, these are 16th numbers, so.
Okay. So are we capable then of doing 1,000?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Set up dairy farm.
So that's what we will be doing in next year's budget?
That's what we are doing. Yeah, when we do the service level report for next year, that number will be 1,000. It currently is 1,000.
Okay.
So, and then do I have an idea of how many carts in general the city would have? That's kind of a hard number to grasp. We were kind of waiting to see how fast these 1,000 went out. I would probably venture to guess that we aren't going to have any problem hitting, if we were developing it and we were advertising it and it was our program, we could certainly be in that 5,000 or 6,000 relatively quickly. I think it would do basically the same thing as our recycling program does, which is a volunteer program. We are at 13,000 recycling carts. So the mentality of the city is very environmental. They like to recycle, and I think given the opportunity, they would. So we just need to afford them that opportunity.
If we had more of those carts out, then Gary would not be so stressed about the people that haul the clippings.
There you go.
Because they could be leaving them in the carts at the people's houses.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Measures of effectiveness. Some of the additional services the department provides at no charge include our fall leaf collection. We also operate a assistance program for our elderly and disabled customers. We do our yearly Christmas tree disposal. And this next one is our annual one-time use of the 3 or the 17-yard PIP containers. We call them PIPs, which is our Partners in Pride program, for 48 hours. And this is really a significant program. This is probably the most used program in the department. These are the free ones we give out to the public that they have to get on. There's like a 6-month waiting list to get on this thing here. But as we did 936 pickups of the 3-yard containers, which are not accounted for in our department totals in our summary page. And we did 312 pickups of the roll-off boxes, which is also not accounted for because these are all free of charges. They don't generate. So we do it manually. So those numbers that we had earlier in our output, these are in addition to those. So it's a very popular program. It's one that the public uses a lot. I think everybody up here has used it at one time or another. So
When we use those, do you have like a certain group that's reserved for construction and of those carts, or do you
the PIPs?
the roll-off or the 17-yard containers?
Those are for residential. We do not allow commercial businesses to use those PIPs.
Okay.
Of either one of them, either size. Those are for the residential use only.
Okay.
So like if you were a contractor, you could not use one of those. Or if you're running a business, you couldn't use one of those. Those are for the residential.
But we're 6 months out on those?
Oh, yeah.
So do we need to have some more of those?
I think we could certainly fill it, but again, it's a demand on services. I only have so many trucks, I only have so many people, and an increase like that, as you can see, even increasing those by 1 would be a pretty substantial increase to the entire operation of how often we have to service those.
Yeah,
But
Mr. Moore.
if we've got people that want to, you know, we would like for our city to continue to beautify itself.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me the ease of access to big containers when you've really got a project going on would be part of that, because, you know, I know I've had salesmen tell me you got like 7 days to 2 weeks if somebody comes on a car lot. That's when you need to sell it or they won't do it. And I think there are people that get motivated to do certain projects, but if they can't see how they can haul it off or access it.
Well, these are the free ones,
Yeah.
right? The department has ones that they can rent.
Okay.
And that come with a service charge on them, but these are just the free ones that we offer.
Well, but I'm saying that if we're really trying to encourage our community and do stuff. And, some of the neighborhoods might not want to be paying to do some of the things for somebody else.
Absolutely, and that would be something, some guidance from the city council. If you would like us to look into expanding that program, we certainly would.
How busy are your rentals? How much of a rate is on them?
The rental for the dumpsters?
Yeah, the dumpsters. Can you get one if I call today? Could I get one? Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We have a pretty good inventory of the carts, the 3-yarders, the roll-off boxes. So certainly within the 24 hours that we had talked about, I could certainly get you one there. But typically we deliver the same day you call.
Okay.
Whether it's a 3-yarder, a dumpster, or a cart.
So some of the stress of waiting could be offset if somebody else would pay for it.
There you go. Yeah, and we also have that, our temporary services that we talked about a little bit earlier, that we charge $25. That's a set fee. That fee does not increase with our annual rate increases. That is a set fee. It's been that way since the last rate study. That is, next to the PIPs, is our second most popular program. That's $25. We deliver it to your house. We let you fill it up. We haul it off.
It's pretty sweet. You can't take it to the dump for that.
You can't take it to the dump for that. So, and that is a very popular option if you can't get the free ones. So we have the ability. It's just not free.
We bring up, so it's a $25 fee to rent one. Mm-hmm. And boy, believe me, I've rented them. And then what's the charge to the city to dump that at the landfill?
Well, they're all dumped in the same. The landfill charges us by the ton per truck that rolls over there. So unless I sent a separate truck to weigh just that dumpster, I can't really tell you that.
Okay, so it's just a bulk by tonnage.
It's a tonnage charge for the entire truck.
What's the charge per ton?
$25 currently.
Okay.
Is that hedging? I heard currently.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay, when was the last time we adjusted this rental fee?
Well, it'd be by the rate study.
Yes.
So
For the
we'll be going
dumpsters, to rent the dumpsters, the carts is done by the
set
rate?
on the rate fee.
It's all
Yes.
set by the rate study.
And they have not adjusted that for?
I'd have to look back on history, but the last time it was reviewed was in 2015?
14.
14.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Because again, we're back to this CPI stuff.
Yeah, right.
On this.
Well, and
we
it
may go-
tries to address that with rate increases
Right.
on items, but if this is something you're trying to encourage people to do and you're trying to make it affordable, sometimes you would leave a fee more flat so that you can encourage the process.
I understand, but again,
I know what you're
I've had the carts. I'm trying to look at what the capacity is by weight if you pack that right, or with some, if you throw limbs in there, then you lose your.
That's purely speculative. I mean, if you're filling it full of sod, right, and versus filling it full of,
Well,
yeah, and the thing about it is, it's like the landfill charges us by the ton. Our fees are based on volume.
Right.
So there's some disconnect between how we charge and how the landfill charges us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a good example of that would be, like, let's say that we take a 3-yard container from one of the local restaurants, which probably weighs 1,000 pounds. And I go over and I take the same volume-wise 3-yard container from an office complex that has paper and office stuff in it, probably weighs 200 pounds, right? The charge is the same.
Right.
And there is some disconnect there. We have in the past looked at changing our billing system to a weight-based billing system, but the technology back then, which was about 5 years ago, the scales and stuff, the ability to weigh on the fly was pretty sketchy.
But that's changed.
Yeah.
But
That may change in the future. I didn't see anything this year that really jumped out at me. But I probably, if the technology becomes available to do that, then I think that's probably a direction I think we would get a much more accurate charge for how we're being billed.
Okay. Well, this is something to look at. Appreciate it.
Issues and concerns. As we said, we have increases across the board, so we're kind of concerned about keeping our adequate manpower to meet the demands for our services, maintaining a competitive rate structure, funding our capital replacement program. As you guys know, garbage trucks are incredibly expensive and they have a very short lifespan. Bannock County may implement a $10 per ton yard waste charge. We got notified of that about 2 months ago. And customer cooperation, keeping our recycling and yard waste programs clean of impurities. We have a lot of issues with people confusing composting with recycling. They are two different programs. The two are not interchangeable. You cannot dump your yard waste in the recycling containers. The whole thing goes to the landfill at that point. We spend a lot of time and effort in our outreach programs. My recycling coordinator is constantly meeting with the school districts, with scout people, with anybody who will listen to her, and we reach out and we make a lot of effort to try to get people to understand the differences in the different programs that we have.
Do we put anything in the utility bill?
Yes.
Semi-annual?
Oh, I think we do it more than that.
Okay, quarterly.
It's more on a quarterly basis, I
Okay,
think.
good.
Yeah, we are certainly reach out to the public every opportunity, because, yeah, I never imagined that I would have to explain the difference between recycling plastic and recycling grass, but
There's space there, fill it, huh?
yeah.
We're going
All right.
to to the numbers. So in the sanitation fund, you have personnel, medical benefits, and benefits other for an overall increase of $48,018. I think they've had some retirements and movements. That's part of the reason for the negative position on the wage line. You can see the impact of the medical benefits. And of course, if personnel wages are on a negative, that's the reason why you're seeing benefits other in the same position. But all these have the hybrid built in, and they also have the Percy increase. Sorry, my mind went blank there for a moment.
We have no retirements.
And retirements. I haven't looked. Do you have that handy, Ashley? Or I've got it here too.
Okay, you got one?
But did you have one for 17? I didn't look to see. We had one in 17, so that's part of the negative decrease, is you don't have a retirement in 18 and you had one in 17.
Okay, but this benefit increase has to do mostly with just movement and the increase in our...
Yeah, your hybrid, so when you're looking at the wages, you have retirements, so you have that movement happening, and then you have hybrid plan in there. And then benefits other, of course, whatever impacts the top line is going to impact
Percy, but medical...
Well, it impacts Percy, Social Security, all those other benefits.
But benefits medical is the one that went up.
Right.
And I'm assuming that's just movement and
yes.
Insurance
It could
increase.
be, part of it's the increased cost, but otherwise it could be you had a single person, they became married, or you had a married person who had a family. So those changes occur.
Okay.
So
your retirements one was in 17 and didn't go and is budgeted again in 18, so
Okay.
you have it fully covered now by savings.
Okay, so we do have a potential retirement, but it's fully covered.
Yep. And it was not in 17. It was not fully covered.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Then overall in their increases between supplies and capital outlay, and we'll discuss that on the slides when we come back, but you can see an overall increase of $360,000 to their operating and capital divisions. And this is for all their divisions. They have many divisions in the sanitation fund. Going down. They are looking at an overall increase in their charges for service at 3%. That's what the rate study dictates. And their budget is composed of about 38% is related to labor and the rest is operating and capital. And they have the 41 employees, and then they have the part-time wages that are included above. Now, they also have, no, this, wrong fund. This is the only fund they have. Just thinking WPC, sorry. So we'll go back to the PowerPoint unless you have other questions on the financial side.
You said you were going to come back to $360,000. You doing it?
We will in the slides. We
Okay.
talk about where the increases are coming to. Let's see. So on this sheet, we show the increases summarized. So you have your revenue increase per the rate study, and then you had rentals and leases. So in supplies, it looks like they're purchasing an office desk. That's about $1,000. Operating supplies, it's a 1-ton truck and with a sander bed. That's about $21,000. Repairs and maintenance for supplies, your parts and your box truck, it's a small amount. We actually had a decrease in central copy for professional services. Repairs and maintenance, tires, an increase by about $6,300. Utility service, landfill charges, yard waste, $128,830. That's built in the budget. I'm going to let Arlen come back to that and comment on it in a moment. Transportation, travel and training and maintenance, $2,000. Miscellaneous contractual service, this is the sump waste.
What's that?
I'm going to let Arlen explain that.
When do you want to explain that?
That is the cost of having to have Larson's come in and pump out our drains.
Your
That is
what?
Pump out our wash bay drains, which is directly related to the issues from Craft Road. As far as the street department used to come in and pump ours, and we used to haul it out there, we now have to contract that out, and that is the projected cost of having that done.
So they're not only transporting it, but they're pumping
Yes.
also.
Yes.
Was there an inter-fund charge?
There was when street was doing it, but now it's going to be contracted.
Okay, and how much was the street charging? Or
I do not have that.
I don't have it handy.
So what I'm asking is this
Tom may be able
$10,000 in addition to what?
Right, Tom may be able to answer this.
Yes.
Good morning,
That's
Tom
right.
Kirkman, Street Superintendent. It was very minimal. It'd take us about a half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 guys in a truck. So it was probably $200.
To pump out the entire sump system and then go out there and de-water it?
Yeah,
Per time.
per time.
Per
And that's
time,
all we
and
would charge is for our time.
Okay, and
So
that,
it's probably even less than 200. It was probably,
and how often do you do that? Monthly?
yeah.
Yeah, we do it monthly. It's a
Okay.
schedule. We have to do it once a month.
So what ended up happening through the whole dewatering process is the sumps in the buildings are becoming very laborious, has to be tested frequently, has to be hauled to a certain landfill. And I think it doesn't, there's no ROI on our end to do it. You know, we're going to lose money if we end up doing it, so.
Okay. So while there was no fines associated with this because of whatever you want to put the reasoning in, there is a cost that's going to be associated with this.
Yes.
Of $10,000 estimated per year.
Yeah, and currently, like I said, this is a preliminary number. We just started having to do this. I had one, we've had it done twice now. The first one was $1,100 a month to do that, and the last one was $9. So there's going to be some fluctuation in there.
So it's volume, and then they're charging mileage and manpower hours to transport to, where's it going?
Milner, yeah, it's going to
And they have to do
Milner.
testing as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's something everybody else is doing that has some, so
We're
it's
going to do
not
it.
unusual.
I mean, we've got the equipment to do our own, but we're contracting it out because it's just too many headaches.
Okay, thank you.
Then the last item is capital vehicles. They're looking at an additional retriever truck, and that's what's causing the increase in the cost of capital items.
Now, explain to me how this works again, because I don't know what your reserves are, okay? I understand that this has to be in the budget and all that. Is there money potentially in the reserves based on what our structure determination of need to pay for?
So based on the rate study and based on our 2017 expenditures, their required reserves, and this is also capital, says that we should have about I'm going to say 3.7 million, rounded up. They had available about $6.2 million, so they actually had excess available. But part of it's his management of how he's addressing some of the personnel and the capital items, so that's building more. Now, some people would be inclined to do something with the rates, but the whole point of this is if we follow the rate study, we come to the end of the rate study, and he has built more reserves than what was expected, then what's going to happen is you could either look at a no increase, a decrease increase, or a very minimal increase, depending on what the needs of the department are at the time of the new rate study. And so this just goes to, it's kind of managing it within. And if he's allowed some flexibility and not just doing, it says to do this, so he tries to manage within that, it could end up building your reserves. Plus, remember, a rate study is an estimate of what's going to happen for 5 years. It's not a known what's going to happen, it's an estimate. And so if charges don't occur, let's say fuel, because fuel would be a big one, if it's down but it was high when we did the rate study, there could be savings there, and that could also help to produce these reserves. But in the end, if we let things ride their course and we get to the new rate study, we could have a very favorable outcome at the new rate study.
Okay, when's the next rate study scheduled to be done?
I believe that the fall of 2018, we will begin the process so that we can implement it in 2019.
19 is what I understood.
So we have about another year.
Try to be patient with me here, because this budget stuff's in way, because this is a utility fee, so this is not a tax based, okay? And the monies that go into this, then, for lack of a better term, really can't be used in a lot of other ways.
They can only be used for sanitation services.
Sanitation services, okay? And so right now, the sanitation department has twice the reserves that the council or somebody established, almost twice?
Almost twice, yeah.
Okay.
But if you noted, there were, as he said, he managed his personnel by not hiring other people. I mean, all those things have an impact.
Well, and don't get me wrong, it is appreciated, okay?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when things are done the way the collaboration between the department head and finance and the council work, I think that gives us flexibility in what to do, okay?
It does.
Because I know it goes into the budget of them, but again, that capital could come out of reserves, okay? But
well, and two, you have to look at it. We have a potential of growth, and if growth occurs prior to the rate study, and remember, the rate study, it takes a while to rebuild reserves. You have the ability to address things that are kind of unknown at the time. So having some excess is not really a bad thing.
it's not, but again, it's difficult to sit here and have, you say $6 million in reserves?
That's what we're estimating it at, yeah, based on, we take 25% of their operating budget for the current year and what the rate study dictates for capital reserves, and that's what creates the reserve requirement, okay?
Okay, and so what you're saying is the revenue increase rates for the 3% increase will generate $200,000 to $23,000.
Yes.
Right.
Right there at the top of the chart, okay?
Right.
Okay, so if you take $223,000, you take $190,700 for truck, you take $128,000, $129,000 for utility building service, landfill charges, and that includes that $10 charge, okay, which we may look at doing something different.
And he has an additional issue that needs to be addressed before we get too far into this.
Okay, but again, if you take those three huge, you take the two big expenses, okay, plus the revenue increase, all right?
Right.
That's less than, just under $900,000.
Right. I can see what you're saying. You're saying based on the excess reserves, we don't really need to do the increase because the current level would absorb it. The only thing
Well,
is,
it gives us some flexibility for a couple of years. You know, I mean, we revisit, and again, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we take a 2%. What I'm saying is it's always great PR if we can say to the public, we're not taking quite as much this year. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't go back to that.
Right.
Okay?
well, it can be treacherous, because sometimes if you this fund is probably the easiest one to contemplate this in. You get into water and WPC, and I'm going to be probably more adamant the other way. But I see where you're driving to. Yes, you have that possibility here, more so than you have in the other two.
But you also have the possibility that maybe a year or two down the road, if you decide to do the composting thing, and let's say it costs $1 million to set that up.
And there are other unforeseen issues that come up. A good one would be the $100,000 recycling charges that were not in the rate study. They weren't budgeted for $100 grand. Any other unforeseen things in our department usually come in big numbers.
Okay.
A truck's $200,000 to $72,000. So.
Right. But what I'm looking at here, and this is where the study session comes from, is because if you're looking at $100,000 in additional landfill charges because of yard waste, then maybe we take that $100,000 and instead of giving it to, or 100.
That wasn't yard waste charges.
Yeah.
Those are
Just the increase.
That is tonnage increases. That does not include any increases in the tonnage charge that the landfill is currently charging. That is just a volume increase from one year to the next. We hauled 42,000 one year or 44,000 the next, and that just increases my landfill fee by that amount.
Okay, so if you take, and that's where I'm still going with this, is if you take $200,000 for capital vehicles and $150,000 for landfill charges, that's $350,000, okay? That's 5% of the reserves.
No, I agree. They have more reserves than was expected.
I'm not saying we expend, but again, 5% to me is a no-brainer on an invest. I mean, if I can keep my costs and stuff of adjusting things around under 10%, then I don't have a problem. I should never have a problem doing it, whether it's an investment or an expenditure, because I have the money to do it. If I had enough money and wanted to spend and buy a new home, and if it was 10% of my valuation, that's a go deal right there every day of the week. Okay. And again, I'm looking at that, and I'm sorry I don't look at things the way.
It's just one of those things. Yes, I mean, this of the three utilities is the one that's in the
it's the simplest,
healthiest,
okay,
or above healthy, shall we say?
It's well managed.
Yes.
Well, it is.
We'll give you that credit there, Arlen.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, is because if we approve this capital and it comes out of reserve, and we realize we're going to have $150,000 in utility increases or landfill charges.
So this particular year, if we just left everything right where it's at, which is the proposals that are on the table, you're going to burn $227,000 of reserves.
Of your reserves.
Yeah.
And that's with the increases. So you're going to go above and beyond that part. Now, can you? Yes.
Well, of $6 million, absolutely.
You know, now Arlen has an additional information on, and it's landfill.
It's related to our landfill fees.
You got an idea, huh?
No, I don't have an idea. I guess now's as good a time as any. I was contacted late yesterday afternoon, as all of these budget numbers are talking about. We were talking about $25 a ton. Landfill charges, I was notified yesterday that will go up to $29 a ton starting in October. So that, in addition to what we already have as our volume increases, will add another $150,000 to our landfill fee, in addition to what is currently on.
So instead of burning 227, we're going to burn more like 377.
But again,
No, I know.
5%.
Right.
And
And so if we take away some of that 223, whatever percentage
goes
we're
up.
talking about, that number's going to go up. And how much you feel comfortable with knowing that you could have some potential needs coming down the road, how aggressive would you want to be? That would be my question.
Hasn't some of that reserve been generated? If I remember right, the Bannock County Commissioners cut a deal with Blackfoot for a lower rate than they were providing Bannock County citizens.
That was several years ago, as I recall, yeah.
But the consequence was that they lowered it for us and Bannock County citizens to get to that equitable place again. And this is kind of payback. What I'm going to say is a mistake.
Yes.
And this is the adjustment back, because this is more like where inflation would have driven.
As far as the current, the landfill increases, is that what you're?
Yeah, I think it was at $28 a ton.
Yes,
and
it
they dropped
was.
it to 25 because they were trying to get Blackfoot's business.
Well, and eventually you're going to have to pay your bills, and if you're not receiving enough revenue to cover it, you will have to increase.
But they got ahead of themselves and were charging an outside entity less than they were charging their own residents, and they had to do an
And
adjustment.
I think currently they pay, as I understand it, they're paying $1 a ton more than what we are now. So I think that's currently how they do that.
But I think that's the way they adjusted it.
Yeah. So,
Well, we're never going to be able to get in the landfill business, but we certainly might be able to get in the composting business, and I think it makes sense to have enough money sitting there in reserves if you come to us with a program that makes a lot of sense where they're going to start charging us for that. It'd be nice to have the money there to do so.
well, I think that would be true in all of our recycling programs. I think the whole purpose of recycling is to get us down to as little going to the landfill.
Right.
The higher that cost goes up, the more attractive these programs start to look. And the composting, especially for per ton, grass weighs a lot more than plastic bottles do. So,
Yeah.
well, it's all relevant.
So do you have in your budget, if they're going to go to 1,000 carts, do you have 400 carts in there or 300 carts?
As far as, yes, we have our budget is,
Okay.
yeah. We have, and we currently stock I got about 300 in the yard right now
Okay.
in our current inventory, so we're prepared for the 1,000 easily. So, and as far as our ability to replace carts we have money in the budget for that.
Well, it's just noticed.
We just don't distinguish between the carts. To me, they're all 96-gallon carts. It's just what color are they? Are we ordering blue ones, green ones, brown ones? What color are we ordering?
Well, I know my cart at my house is 20-some years old. I think it's the original one.
Yeah, I know somebody you can call and get that taken care of.
Well, seeing in light of this, then I have this proposed increase by the county. I really think then those roll-off carts that you pay for that are $25 now, I think they ought to go to $30.
So are we talking doing that increase this year or at the rate study?
No,
The
I would do it. I would do it this year if the county's going to take that, because
Well, but if you have excess reserves, that would be one way you could provide that service, utilizing those excess reserves. Wait for the rate study to reassess, then that would be
yeah, but
a way to manage it.
But see, by taking the $30 or the $5 a cart, okay, we impact. I mean, how many carts do you put out a year? 1,000, 2,000?
The 3-yard containers?
Well, whatever you charge $25.
Yeah, it's in the thousands.
Okay, so that's $5,000. Okay. But not every citizen who lives in the area utilizes one of those cards. But if the journal says city doesn't take a 3% sanitation increase, or only takes 2%, that gets out to everybody that pays the utility fee.
Right.
Okay. And we're 2 years away from a rate study. How long does it take Gallagher to do a rate study?
Well, we start in the fall of 2018, so that by the spring of
2019.
You'll have it in the summer of 19 for 2020 implementation.
Okay, that's right.
Okay, so it's 3 years before we make a decision. Okay, doesn't mean that next year we don't take a 3% rate. It's just, again.
So, can I address
Yeah.
this for a second? So
Or
one of
some
the
ideas.
things, though, when you talk about those 3-yard containers in particular, right, is the reasoning why we keep it at $25 is to make it affordable to help keep the city clean. So that gets into one of those things like, are we as a department willing to take a little bit of a loss on this to help the overall city stay clean? It's kind of the same concept as our PIPs. So I believe that we want to do everything we can to give the public at large a cheap alternative to help keep their places up.
Absolutely.
So that is one of the reasons why we don't really look at trying to increase those kinds of costs. It's our general services.
We have the proposed fees that are going to go up. Those are on the next few slides. Why don't we go through those and then we can come back to this
Well, think about
discussion?
what I'm saying. I mean, I'd like to...
I am hearing what you're saying. It just depends on how you want to look at this and where you want to kind of prepare yourself to be over the course of the next few years. So in the proposed fees, you'll see that on the minimum monthly charge, you're going to go from $17.45 to $17.97. This 64-gallon cart service, you have once a week collection, and of course the monthly billing charge, which is the same increase as above, but you're going from $14.50, which is currently, to $14.94. The 95-gallon for the once a week collection, $15.72 to $16.19. And then if there's an additional refuse cart per unit, per cart, $15.72 to $16.19. So basically, you pay the same rate. An additional pickup per refuse is $13.66 to $14.07. If there's no questions on this page, I'm going to move on to the next one.
And this is, we just can't use round numbers?
It is implementing it based on, because overall it's supposed to be a 3%
Right.
increase. And so that's the reason why you get the odd numbers. If we don't, then we're not really following the rate study.
Right.
It isn't that we're crazy about pennies, but
No.
it's just the way it works.
What's the additional pickup?
Those would be like dumps, second dumps at your house, if you call us and want it
If your green cart got full,
and you wanted us to come prior to your garbage day, and that did, yeah, that's the service charge for that.
3-yard containers, each pickup per container, it goes from $78.19 to $80.54. The monthly rental per container is $10.33 to $10.64. The little A there says that there is also a sales tax charge. It's not reflected in the fee, it's just in addition. Special pickup per dump, $18.08 to $18.62. The monthly billing charge is the same increase that I've already quoted, and the same for the temporary 3-yard container service on the monthly billing charge. Privately owned compactor service, the pickup charge per pull, $178.60 to $183.96. Monthly billing charge is the same that we've quoted already. Roll-off box service, the monthly for a 20-yard box.
Those are the small ones.
Okay, $95.07 to $97.92. If it's a daily rate, it's $3.17 to $3.27. Monthly 30/32-yard box rental, $106.28 to $109.47. The daily on that is $3.54 to $3.65, and we have removed the 40-yard box rental. We don't do those anymore. And the pickup charge per pull is $178.60 to $183.96, and the monthly billing charge is the same on the increase. And those are all of the proposed fee increases.
Okay, so how much is that month, or how much is a pole for one of these containers?
Basically, it would be, the current one is $178.60 for a roll-off box in general.
Okay.
And
I can get one of
it
those
would go
for
up to
free?
$183.96.
I can get one of those for free.
That is the same size. These are not the free ones.
Okay, what's the size of the free one?
They are the 17-yarders, which would be the ones for $95.07.
Okay, so you're charging $95.07 to pull that box.
That is the rental fee on the box. The pull charge is the same. It's $178.60 to pull any roll-off box that we have.
In addition to the rental?
Yes.
Okay. So I rent it for how much? A 17 yard?
You graduated.
The 17
monthly
yard
fee
is 95 currently.
95? And
For a month.
let's say I keep it for the weekend.
That would be a daily charge, which is $3.17 a day.
In addition to that 95, or is it?
No, that's for a monthly charge.
That's a monthly charge.
Okay, so I get a box for 3 days, it's $3 a day. That's not, it's $10.
Okay.
But then you're going to charge me to pull it, right?
$178.60 currently.
Okay, so it costs $175 to have that box for
Yes.
3 days and pull it.
Yes.
Okay. And you're concerned about $30 for one of those free ones? See what I'm going with this?
Oh,
Well, the demand for the little ones is much greater than it is for the roll-off boxes. Very few people.
Right, but to me, $30, I can't justify throwing stuff in my pickup and driving it out there for $30.
Yeah.
Because the wear and tear on, scratching my white paint on my truck and
I'm
all
not
that
saying
stuff,
from
by God. So I want you to consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions on the fees? Okay. Then we're through the presentation.
I just want to make sure we've got a study session that we will come back to the
about the
composting
recycle.
issue.
Yes, I think when John comes up, we can put something together, and Levi is here. We'll get one on the calendar. And is there anything in particular in this study session you would like to bring before you?
Well, I think the composting, you mentioned $100,000 for recycling increase too.
Yes, that was the charge that we started having to pay in FY16, yes.
Okay.
And currently, just to give you an idea, that has been running, last month, I think or the month before that, we were charged $14 a ton to get it processed. Last month, it was $50 a ton, so it's all over the place. This stuff is all market value. Most of it's sold to China. So depending on what's going on in the world, kind of determines what the value of our recycled products are. But it has in general been coming down from the $70 that we were paying in January of last year. So it's headed in the right direction. It's just a slow process getting there. So
I think part of what I would like to have considered in that study session would be an overall way in which we can improve the cleanliness of our city.
yeah, and we have some ideas that it
sure
would
you
help
do.
with that. There's lots of different ways that the city could implement this. The thing in general to keep in mind is creating aerated static piles, which is the composting process that we would be looking at, is kind of like making a cake, right? There's a list of ingredients that have to go into this. And the question is, does the city have the capacity to come up with those ingredients, and can we do it year-round? Because when you start talking about WPC, their biosolids run year-round. Our ability to collect yard waste is not. So there's some issues there, like what do we have to stockpile? How do we stockpile it? How much wood chips versus grass versus everything else that would go in the yard waste program can you put into this recipe and not change it? So that would all have to be determined. We have to kind of create this. Just to give you a Reader's Digest version of what we learned up in Coeur d'Alene is in their biosolids program up there, they do not allow yard waste of any type in their biosolids composting. It is wood chips only, and it is the same with Hamilton, excuse me.
Hamilton, Montana.
Why don't you come with ideas of,
Okay.
okay, what
And
if we do it, what if we have somebody else do it, what does it look like? So
I can
we go
outline.
from there.
Yeah, okay.
Because those things, once you get your piles set up, they'll sit and cook.
Yes.
They generate a lot of heat.
Yes.
But for $100,000, I think you can get the rake, the tall wheels equipment to go down the rows and.
Well, if you do a static pile, you wouldn't be doing that anyway. Right?
Well,
Already static pile. That's
Static
the
pile,
process.
but the static piles don't. breakdowns quick. But
This is something we can talk about during the study session, though. So let's get moving on this one.
Well done. Thank you.
We got some direction on the study session of what we need to find, so.
I'm going to hurry up and order one of those dumpsters for 25 before you raise it.
there you go.
And I was a bit remiss, I didn't introduce Ashley, she's here with us, she's the senior accountant from accounting. I know you all know Ashley.
John Harris, Water Pollution Control Director. Thanks for inviting me to visit you this morning.
I'll bet you're thrilled.
I am. I'm on vacation, too.
I was just going to say he's on vacation, so he's really excited.
Is this your farewell tour?
Yes. One would hope. Yeah. So our department's mission is to collect and treat wastewater at the lowest practical cost while meeting regulations and providing excellent customer service. As you can see from this slide, this kind of documents how the WPC department is staffed. We have 2 full-time employees at the administration. Operations has 7 full-time. Maintenance has 7 full-time. Collection has 7 full-time. Laboratory pre-treatment have 4 full-time. And then we have 4 seasonal employees.
So that population served, does that include Chubbuck as well? Or
No, that's
No,
just Pocatello?
just Pocatello.
Yeah, even the accounts, that's Pocatello members.
For 2016, we increased our rates on October 1st from $29 to $29.75 per the 2015 financial plan. Also during that time, we reduced Great Western Malt volume charge by half. That was done to encourage them to do their expansion here. But it was a significant hit, will be a significant hit to the department down the road.
Is that a reduction in perpetuity, or is it?
It is for 10 years.
And is that something we approved?
Pardon?
Did we approve that?
No.
No.
Why not?
That was done in the negotiation part of having Great Western double the size of their plant here.
But shouldn't we be involved in negotiation when we're reducing a charge that impacts our citizens?
We can be. Historically...
We are. We set the rates. That's what we're listening to here. I mean, that's what we do. We're the people that do that.
But I mean, this is after the fact.
Well, I know from my experience that historically these issues have been dealt with in the current administration and in past administrations, and it has not always been presented. That would be, I would say, it's a policy change that we need to clarify.
No, I don't think it's a policy change. I think it's an executive session that we have had before where we have said yay or nay. And I don't know that it should be something that is not taken to the council.
John, how many thousands of gallons do they produce? How many?
They have a capacity in the system of 1 million gallons a day. They right now they're discharging close to 500,000.
500,000.
Yeah.
That's 7% of his discharge daily of 7 million gallons.
So that's $600 a day less income.
How much does this impact your budget then? I guess?
Well, let me say it's not going to impact my budget, but we're going to be paying the ratepayers. The rest of the ratepayers are going to be paying to treat their waste.
Nice.
Ready to move on to the next slide? Okay.
We've had several instances. Great Western's
Give them a break.
very famous for trying to get the best deal they can. They use a lot of water in their process, and so they're always comparing their different, their other plants in Canada and other parts of the United States that treat their water
You and I are going to get to pay.
or pay less for their water. So it's or their treatment. So it's always been a big thing with them. They've they've had former mayors give them good deals at times and help work with them to try to work their, make their process more efficient. So we've, as you can see on the slide, we've treated an average of 6.97 million gallons a day, 2.55 billion gallons for the year to the Portland River. Last year, the Water Pollution Control Plant removed approximately 87% of the phosphorus entering the plant and averaged 48 pounds per day of phosphorus discharged. The limit on the phosphorus doesn't actually start until December 31st of this year, and then it is going to 25.1 pounds per day. So last year we didn't meet that. We met it most of the year, but there are just certain days that we don't. But things are very promising the way the plant is operating now, because we're fully operational with our upgrades, and it's really looking promising. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, also we did the cure-in-place pipe, almost 10,000 feet of that. That's a lining process where we find sewer pipes that are deteriorating, broken, didn't have infiltration or exfiltration, and we go in there and put a PVC liner in it, and it extends the life of the pipe for up to 50 years. So it works very well. We're starting to do a lot of that. We're going to be doing $500,000 a year of that from now on. So. Okay, the collection crew, they cleaned over 231 miles of sewer line and then performed a closed-circuit television inspection on over almost 70,000 lineal feet of pipes, ranging from 6-inch to 42-inch. You'll see tonight in the council meeting we're asking for a new camera van, and that will help us out immensely. Then also, our pre-treatment staff inspected 7 industrial users, performed approximately 500 inspections, and then along with the police department, we took back 1,300 pounds of drugs and removed them from either the landfill or the sewer system, or they take them and get them disposed. As you can see from the slides here, I've got some somewhat nice pictures. They're not real clean, but during construction. This is our ultraviolet disinfection system, which started up in April of 2016, operating very well. And then as part of the process for the plant is to make the plant more operationally flexible and perform some, and allow it to have some redundancy. We added these mixed liquor return pumping and swing zones, and they were operational September 2016. And then the dual media filter process. This is the really good process for us. It's removing a lot of the phosphorus out of the solids, and it became operational in April. They just actually finished up the paving on the plant yesterday, and so it's really nice. You don't have to drive through mud or walk through mud to get around. Really like that. So the issues and concerns. Happy day, John gets to retire. So
put a smiley face on it.
Yeah. Yes, I'm planning on retiring in February. See how that goes, but the wife will let me. But we're working on succession planning, and the plant superintendent or the plant operations needs to have 2 Class 4 licensed operators for the plant. Right now it's myself and Levi Adams over there. I finally got him in a tie. We are the Class 4 responsible charge operators for the plant. So, we do have another Class 4 operator in the plant that would, when I retire, if Levi or the other person was hired for the superintendent's position, then we have that covered through the state and EPA. If you were to go out for an outside superintendent, then we'd still have that covered because we have the two licenses still. But, we'd like to, I think, move towards keeping it in the plant staff, but.
Well, and I think it would be good, and I would agree with that, but I think it would be good for you to present us with some kind of a plan before you leave, as timely as you can, to show how that would work. I think would be really helpful before that process gets started and gets ahead of itself.
Okay. Yeah,
Good to know how you got that set up and what you envision that looking like. I think.
Okay, sounds good.
So do you need really 3 Class 4 operators? Because if you're on vacation,
No,
you don't, just 2.
just 2, yeah.
Okay. And is it statute that requires 2 to be there?
It is, I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah,
federal.
DEQ or EPA requires that. The 2 is so that you 2 can't go on vacation at the same time typically. You get
Or we need to be reachable by.
right phone.
We can't go to Fiji and then.
Yeah.
Not
And how
have to do that.
difficult is it, John, to get someone else that certification? Let's say, for example, when you leave, keep everything internal, we need another one. How much time?
They need a bachelor's. They need 12 years of experience, I believe, and they have to test through they have to start at the 1, 2, 3, and then the 4.
And do you have people in your system that can do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we're looking at we had an operator position open, and we are looking for instead of luckily we found somebody that applied that had a Class 2 license, and we're trying to entice him to come from Oregon to here, but so instead of starting somebody no license and working their way up, we're going to start this guy with he has quite a bit of knowledge, and we're hoping to hire him at that position. But we have right now we have in the wastewater treatment we have 1 Class 3 and then 3 Class 2s. And so, the Class 2s, the guy that has a Class 3 just needs to basically test for the Class 4. He's got the time in.
Okay.
And then the aging staff, we've had years of service for the staff was 14 years last year and 12.2 this year. And then age of staff, 44 versus 42. So we're getting younger. When I leave, it'll really change. We did have 2 retirements, late 16 and early 17. And then aging infrastructure, both at the wastewater treatment plant and collection system. We still have some stuff some equipment that's been there for years. And, we're constantly working on them, constantly bringing them up to the specs, and so they operate efficiently and we meet our permit needs. Some more issues and concerns are the NPDES permit does expire in September of 2016 or 17. Excuse me. We have reapplied in March of this year, and then we expect the update to be here summer of 2018 by Idaho DEQ. There's a transition now from EPA Region 10 dealing with the NPDES permit, both stormwater and wastewater, and it's going to Idaho DEQ, and that's a good thing for us. We don't expect any significant changes to the permit. There might be some minor ones, but with the phosphorus issue, there's Simplot has a big phosphorus load that discharges or comes through into the river right by the plant through the springs, comes down through their gyp stack and then down into the springs, and so until Simplot gets that taken care of, I don't expect DEQ to make any changes to our phosphorus limit. And then development could cause some capacity issues or jurisdictional issues. Johnny Creek, Mink Creek, and Craft Road unsewered areas are causing aquifer issues, and I think that's something that we need to look at very seriously. And then the reserves are low due to phosphorus project, EPA mandated areas.
Where are your reserves at? I know they're low. You were asked to spend money in a couple areas.
I brought my accountants along.
Yeah.
John, when will we settle up on this project? When will it all be done and the final bill paid?
December, January.
No, I expect it to be probably by August.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other question. You mentioned Simplots discharging all that material before the plant. This has cost our community dearly, $23 million. Can we expect help in getting Simplot to comply?
Oh, they are. They're under a compliance order from EPA, and there's a plan for them to reduce their phosphorus. They're lining the gyp stack, and they're
lining the gyp stack.
Yeah, and so what they do is they've got a big pile of gypsum, and they put water on it. You know, they put more material on there, and the water flows down through, gathers the phosphorus and other things, and then goes down into the springs and then runs to the river. And so what they're doing is they're putting a liner in there, so nothing will be going down through anymore. So I'm not sure exactly where they're at with the liner wise, but they've significantly reduced the load coming into the river from say 1,500 pounds a day to about 700 pounds a day. So they've done a lot of work to it. But they have until 2023 to finish that.
If this had been done earlier, would it have saved us $23 million?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because what was your previous discharge rate? 25? You seldomly exceeded 25 pounds per day, right?
Before our, we have about probably 700 pounds coming into the plant.
But your discharge phosphate?
Right.
Is to add typically what?
Typically it was at, let's see. Well, like last year it was 48 pounds.
Okay, 48 pounds.
Yeah.
See, this is the disconnect between government and Simplot is down now to approximately 700. City of Pocatello is discharging 48, but the City of Pocatello has to reduce to 25.
Because we are able to do that.
Yeah, they're able to do it, and they're able to
do that.
figure out all the point sources.
Because we are a point source, and they can tell us to do that. Whereas they have to work with a private company to do that.
And again, I don't remember what this project is on the gyp stack. I think it's $100 million or something to line that. But anyway, but that's just the disconnect, and you are correct. I mean, if Simplot had not been doing it, this still would have been coming because government looks at best available control technology and
you know,
so
if they would have hit us as hard as they've hit some other cities in the country, you know, we would have been spending, you know, $50 to $75 million to treat phosphorus down to less than 1 pound a day, or I guess maybe 2.5 pounds a day. So it's real scary.
Yeah, it is. We'll get there.
Okay, on their reserves, their required reserves between the rate study and 25% of the operating for 2017 equates to a required reserve of $2,389,095. What they have in excess is now about $1,167,000 because John is working hard to move it the other direction. The problem with the phosphorus project, we initially spent between $1 and $2 million on the studies and the pre-design work before we actually started the process on the phosphorus upgrade. We were hoping, based on the costs, that maybe some of the bond money we would complete the project with enough money to replace those dollars. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and so he's in the process of rebuilding reserves because of that. So his ability to do emergency projects are a little tighter, but we're moving in the right direction. That's the way I would look at it. I'm happy with the 1.1 million.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't as positive last year.
The WPC did pay for some upgrades out at the airport, didn't they?
Yes, there was you replaced some pipe.
Just, some sewer pipe out there.
Is that all the questions there? So we'll go to the numbers. So in WPC, in the personnel wages, medical benefits, and benefits other, they have an overall increase of $18,029. I can see the negative down in the benefits other. That indicates to me that their work comp class codes went down and it had an impact. But overall, you have the hybrid in here, the new medical plan with the new distribution rates, and your increase in PERSI is also being reported. The operating lines, you can see he has an overall decrease of $14,000. And we'll talk about his increases on the slides to come here, and so we'll go into more detail on those various lines. On his rate increase, he's programmed for about a 3%, and you can see that's been built in his charges for service. This year, he is looking at, I have to kind of look at this, he's looking at building reserves again of $281,000, but that's the direction we should be going in with this particular fund at this point. His percent of wages to overall operating and capital is 20%. He has 27 employees, and his part-time budget is reported as disclosed. He also has if you remember, the capacity connection fees that come in. We segregated those back in, I want to say 2013. So, of course, there's no expenditures, because what we're doing is we're trying to build this fund to get to a point of having a debt service payment, because that's what we tagged this money to be used for, was debt service. And so it builds until we get to the point we can cover a debt service payment. So you can see the proposed charges for service on that. That is all this fund does. It will make either a debt service payment, or it will receive the capacity connection fees. It doesn't do anything else but those two activities. We also have debt service, and we have 2 bonds that are out. So you can see the debt service is going up by $1,400. Interfund charges, that's admin support and the various, I'm trying to think if there's anything, there's probably computer services, those type of charges that are coming through on the interfund.
Not on that.
I think it's just admin.
You think it's just admin? Okay. Other financing sources, this is where we make the transfer in from, currently from Fund 32 into the debt service fund to make the bond payments. And so that's what the other financing source is. And then you can see the debt service payments that are occurring here. Then we also have, and this will be the last time we report on this, because it's actually going to go to 0 this year, which is their construction fund. John's kind of excited about that. So that's the wrap-up of the phosphorus upgrade. And so this fund will stay dormant until it's needed again for a future project, but it will have no activity. Do you have any questions on the numbers? Go back to, are we okay? To the slides. So his budget authority increase is summarized as follows. He's increasing his electricity power charges by $100,000, increase to repairs $59,500, an increase in the interfund, and a decrease in capital of $166,000. And he can go into more detail if you have any specific questions on that. No? The proposed fee increases: residential, single family, $29.75 to $30.55. The industrial facilities, the volume charge per 1,000 gallon is 262 to 286. Great Western volume is 131 to 143. And the total phosphorus per pound is $9.01 to $9.53. System capacity fees, the treatment, a 3/4 inch water connection, $1,680 to $1,800. 1 inch is the same. A 1.5 inch water connection is $3,360 to $3,600.
That's interesting.
Collection, 3/4 inch water connection, $1,510 to $1,540, and that is the same for the 1 inch. And the 1.5 inch water connection is $3,020 to $3,080.
There are two components to our capacity fees. One is the treatment and one is the collection. Since people are paying to use the collection system and the treatment plant. So if somebody builds a new house, they have to pay both of those portions. If they,
It explains itself, doesn't it? Okay, rates.
Why would, we've spent all the money on the collection side, not so much on the supply side. So why are we raising?
Say that again.
The collection side, we've spent a lot of money to expand our capacity.
Right.
the treatment plant, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the supply side for...
Yeah, that would be the collection system.
Okay.
Yeah. We are spending money on that every year, but
Well, that's your cure-in-place pipe, isn't that basically your collection system?
Yeah. And then we've had several small lift station upgrades. We have 23 lift stations throughout the city. We've had, we do work on those. We have money coming up in. I was thinking that maybe it's in 19, but to rebuild the Whitman lift station. And
we have some prelim stuff that we've done on that already.
Yeah. So we are spending money there, but it's.
I'm thinking all this stuff we just paid for and undergoing is part of the collection system. Was that part of the rate study initially?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. All of this is all connected to the rate study.
Okay.
John, how does the system function as far as failures or backups or whatever you want to call those that are a problem? Do those numbers stay pretty constant every year, or are they getting bigger every year?
They're actually decreasing. And I apologize. I usually have that in this presentation, but we're down to less than 2 occurrences per. Less than 2 occurrences a year.
Is that because of the increased maintenance or the increased cleaning that you're doing? Is that what?
All of it, yeah. All of it, yeah. Cammering, cleaning, and response.
Any other questions here? Move on. Okay, these are the rates. He's done a comparison. I'll let him explain those.
Yeah, typically we've gone with similar sized cities throughout the area or throughout the state, but this time I kind of wanted to look a little bit closer to home, and so we looked at Soda Springs, Ammon, Burley, Chubbuck, American Falls, Blackfoot, and then Idaho Falls to compare rates to, and the smaller towns, Soda, Burley, American Falls, they've all underwent really expensive upgrades to their plants or systems, and so they're spending a lot of money. Chubbuck had the North Valley Sewer that they've spent a lot of money on. Blackfoot is spending more money, and Idaho Falls is on the verge of doing some more construction. They just had a nitrogen facility installed a couple of years ago, and so their rates are still backed by the energy that they generate and sell, and so
It's not apples to apples.
Yeah, it's not, but they are increasing the rates to cover things.
Future needs?
Well, I'm going to be the compost bubble burster here. You know, I like the idea of composting. I really do. You know, I think it's a great thing. If you are limited in land, if you're limited in, or if you just have restrictions to where you can haul your biosolids to. Unfortunately, the development at the airport hasn't happened like we've been planning for 20 years.
Right.
And if it was, it'd be a great thing. If we had less land there, we have to do something with our biosolids. Whether it's thickening it or composting at the final process. But there are a lot of other things that we could do with that $10 million than to compost. We could spend money at Craft Road. We could spend money at Johnny Creek to put sewers in there, get rid of septic tanks, and I think I'd like to suggest that might be a thing to look at as well.
But you're talking about composting of biosolids, not yard waste and...
Well, like Arlen was saying, the composting of the yard waste would only happen during the growing season for the yards, But our biosolids composting would happen all year round.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not something we would stop when the yard waste was gone. We could stockpile some and do it that way, but it's you need an end user for that. For those solids that you have, you need an end user, and if you don't have somebody that's willing to take, I don't know what we'd end up with our 1,200 tons of biosolids once that was composted, but it's got to go somewhere, and so, you need a market, and I just don't know that there is a market for that here.
How many tons?
1,200 tons a year.
1,200 tons? Oh my heavens, how much? Huh?
Well, in my world, it's a lot.
Yeah, my world is not.
Yeah.
I just got done a project putting in a 70,000 ton dry shed. Okay.
But right now we have all the land that we, unless development takes off, we have land all the way from the plant to the airport and beyond that, that we can apply on. And then if we do lose some land, we could thicken and still apply. There are two. Class A is basically pathogen free. Composting would remove the pathogen, so it'd be Class A. The Class B that we haul out now, and we do it wet. It's a slurry in a truck, but we could do it. We could thicken that and put it on less land, but it'll be a lot cheaper. With our reserves, we just don't have $10 million to do that. We'd have to use all the Arlen's reserves to do that.
Let me ask you a question about that. Okay, so all the biosolid land is alfalfa?
Wheat, alfalfa.
Wheat, alfalfa.
We have enough where we can give a season off and they can plant spuds on it if they want to.
Really? They'll let you plant spuds and still land apply that?
We can't apply on it or they can't harvest the crop for 20 months. So.
Okay. And what's the lease rate on that property?
The lease rate is $99 an acre.
$99 an acre?
Yeah.
And do they pay for the water?
Some do and some don't. Just depends on the lease. We have some grandfathers, some older leases that where we pay for the water. We have some leases where they pay for the water.
What's the typical lease rate on agricultural ground? Like Johnson's up there. What do Johnson's pay or?
I'm honestly not sure.
So we don't know how competitive this is to.
We can find out. You said Johnson's?
Well, I mean,
we have, what we try to do is we try to make this very what's the word?
Well-
Exciting, very, very incentive driven for the farmer.
Right.
Because we're strictly, the benefit is wholly to us. Because we have to.
But the benefit's also to them, because I put down less fertilizer because of the nitrate.
Right. But a typical farmer, if he's leasing land, he can say, well, this year I want to put spuds on. Next year I want to plant wheat.
Right.
What we're telling him is, this is what you're going to plant.
So we keep the rates down so we help these parasites on communities make money.
Well, I don't look at it that way.
Well, I do, because I not only can, for $99, I can grow the alfalfa. Okay, that's typically a 5-year crop. Okay, I don't pay water. I reduce my fertilizer, my nutrient inputs. Okay, and then after it freezes, I can bring my cattle in and graze them. Okay. Even on a bad year last year, hay was going for $60 a ton. Years past, it's gone as high as $180 to $200 a ton. Okay. The state of Texas has a Biosolids Program. I mean, they developed it. They control how much phosphate and everything else can be in it. Other states also have this. And you're right, it is an expensive process to do this, but people pay for it to do it because of the organic nature. But again, I think it is imperative that from time to time we look at comparative studies on things to see what the real actual cost should be and such, so that I understand that they're doing us a favor in a perspective, but we are also doing them a favor. Okay, there is a symbiotic relationship there that has to be fair on both sides. Okay, if it's not fair on both sides, then it becomes parasitic on one, because one benefits and the other does not. So I think it's important. And again, this is not any reflection on you and your department. It's a reflection on us as not asking for this information to be provided from time to time. So.
Okay.
Well, we have several leases that are up, and Andrea and legal has been on my back to get them done. So you'll probably be seeing them within the next couple months. So that'll be.
We can have more conversation.
Yeah, we'll have more conversation then.
Okay. Because there's a lot of people who lease land out here on the flat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and we'd have to put a value to what the benefit is in order to have that land being used in the way that we need them to use it. I mean, there has to be a value associated with that as well. And I think that might be difficult, but we would try to come up with some kind of variation to that.
Well, I know the limitations on what you can do with what we call, I hate to use the term, but waste water or waste stream. So anyway.
We're pretty sure we don't want to farm it ourselves, right?
Well, I wasn't going to suggest it.
No.
Maybe I can do that when I retire.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing you won't.
For $99 an acre?
Yeah.
Make sure
Well, I
you
would
talk to
too.
your wife about that. She probably found you a new job.
Okay. That's it on WPC.
Well, yeah, we already did the questions. So thank you, John. Good
Thank
job,
you.
John.
Thanks, John.
Take a break for a second.
Sounds like we want to take a break for a few minutes, so we'll take a break and we'll be back for Science and Environment. Good morning, and thank you for joining us after the break. We'll go ahead and continue on. We've got Science and Environment.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Hannah Sanger, Science and Environment Division Manager. So the mission of this department is to manage the city's federal stormwater permit and achieve permit requirements and water quality improvements. And so we do this with 3 key services that we provide. So we manage the permit, as I just said. And then we serve as a science and environment advisor to the mayor council. And as directed, we implement programs, policies related to the city's environmental interests. And then we facilitate public outreach and participation in environmental programs and policy decisions. And just to give you an idea of what all of that might involve is everything from working with ISU on research endeavors related to water quality, related to water quantity for groundwater, surface water, DEQ, lots of partners thinking about that Simplot consent order and the DEQ and the permit for the wastewater treatment plant. In the late 90s, the city sued DEQ, and out of that came a revised total maximum daily load for pollutants, particularly phosphorus, in the Portneuf River. And also out of that came, the city and DEQ and various other interests in the Portneuf River, everybody from ISU, having more monthly meetings and just facilitating the conversation so that we aren't at a point where we're suing each other and to get into compliance or to fight laws, that we're all on the same page as we approach these regulations. And for stormwater, that's great in terms of right now we have DEQ doing analysis of what is the impact of the city's stormwater programs, and they're looking, they're like, well, I couldn't find anything here, but here's where I found something really good. And so that's a lot of my outreach. Also, besides going to the general public, is working with these agencies. And then just want to note on that Simplot by 2021 should be down to about, I think it's 75 pounds per day. So we were talking earlier about the cities now has at 25. Simplot was at, 1,200 pounds per day. Today they're about 750, and they should be shortly after us getting down much, much closer. And that is in compliance with our total maximum daily load goals for the river. And so it does that's the tying together of a lot of my work. I had nothing to do with that part, though. I don't want to assume any credit for that. But a lot of other things related to what I work on. So inputs into this department, we have 2 full-time staff and 2 summer interns last year. For fees, we've taken about $50,000 from our co-permittees. That's Bannock County, Chubbuck, ITD, and eventually ISU will be on there. And then we've taken a little over $2,000 in fees from development for erosion and sediment control inspections and certifications. For assets that we don't manage these assets, the street department manages these assets, but we are mapping them and sort of working on permit compliance with them. We have about 10 miles of pipes, channels, streams that are stormwater related, about over 5,000 structures, and about 200 ponds and swales. And that pond and swale number is growing. I expect it'll probably be about 300, maybe 400 once we get all of the private ponds included, and that includes every little facility that might be, twice the size of this table, serving a small commercial development. So quite a lot to track, actually. That's sort of what we're doing. So last year, the big things we worked on was the River Vision Study. So I've talked to you a lot about that. Very successful in involving community members in this community-driven vision that you adopted for the Portneuf. And that ties in a lot to the outreach for our permit, of knowing that with our stormwater permit, it's not just permit compliance that's driving where we want to go with the river. You can use the permit to help us achieve what the community wants. So we know where the community wants to go with the Portneuf River, and we can use the permit, the enforcement mechanisms in the permit to help us get to where we want to be as a community. So with the permit, last year we're in year 10. Well, it was a 5-year permit. It's been extended for about 5 years. We started doing some integrated stormwater master planning, so beginning to update our stormwater map and model. So we're at the tail end of that. We implemented design standards for city projects, working with engineering and streets, and a lot of outreach and public participation. So Environmental Fair, Water Week, the River Vision, and other outreach events. And here's our pretty picture for the Portneuf. with the River Vision. And so how do we measure effectiveness? Unlike a lot of departments, we don't have, it's really hard to compare cities to cities for stormwater and environmental issues and looking at our effectiveness. So just going to touch on a couple of the big issues that we worked on. So asset management, so our inventory of assets, we've nearly completed our stormwater map and model, and that is going to enable us to actually develop a stormwater management program, a capital improvement plan that we can bring back to you. So this division will work with finance and streets and engineering to say, hey, here's all of our stormwater program, here's all the different components of it and where we're going, here's the capital improvement needs, and bring it to you to help guide us on what actually gets implemented. And especially with a new permit coming up, I'll touch on that. This is sort of the prime time as we have new requirements. We did a lot of community awareness, knowledge, and engagement. So we do been tracking community understanding and engagement with options for stormwater and river management. So the river visioning, increased knowledge of the community in terms of what is possible for stormwater management, for river management compared to a year ago, and improved quality of the stormwater plans that local developers are sending us, and that saves staff a lot of time. And then new development, there's certainly reduced erosion and sediment track off onto city streets. We still can make improvements. I was out all day yesterday working on that with a lot of coworkers. And improved on-site retention and detention of stormwater. So that is getting better. But the big goal is water quality and quantity, and so that's what we're measured on by the EPA and DEQ. So we know we have decreased sediment entering the Portneuf River. It is hard to measure in the river. DEQ just tried to analyze that, and the current tools don't let us see that in terms of in the river. But we know, our ponds are working. We look at Sacagawea Park, and we have truckloads, dump loads of sediment that is captured in Sacagawea Park every year, and so that we know that is effective. Additionally, the thing we can see, and DEQ just did an analysis that shows that we have less volume of stormwater going into the Portneuf River during our rain events, and so that our detention ponds are working. Since 2006, we've grown as a city, so we have more impervious area, so we should be sending more water to the river faster, but we've been adding detention ponds such as Sacagawea Park and all new developments, and so those are working. And the water that we send to the Portneuf River during storm events is dirty. And so less water going to the Portneuf River means also that Portneuf River is going to be cleaner. And so I am working now with EPA to try and use that as, have that approved as a measurement of effectiveness that they would approve. So things to keep in mind with stormwater and our environment in general that complicates and adds costs to both the city and private development. Our steep slopes have fine loess soils. They erode easily. They clog our facilities. They are challenging. This is not Idaho Falls that is flat with sandy soil. You don't have to even worry about this. In Pocatello, that loess soil, it blows. Yesterday blows. You've all seen it in your neighborhoods. So that's a challenge, and when it gets into our pipes, it clogs our pipes, and our street department has to take it out, or it clogs our ponds, or it makes its way to the river, and we're responsible there. We've talked about this a bunch. Our old infrastructure in the valley floor, it can't handle more stormwater coming in from the benches. So we have just challenges there. Our rain comes mostly as snow. And so that limits our ability to, revegetate easily. And it, limits recharge of our aquifer. We are highly dependent on having snowy winters, and if we have rainy winters, we're going to have less recharge of our aquifer, and so that's something to keep in mind. Shallow aquifer under the city is also our drinking water, and so we have regulations in place to protect our drinking water for when people put ponds or dry wells into the ground. We want to make sure that our drinking water is protected. And the Portneuf River is listed for a whole bunch of sediment and nutrients, oil and grease, bacteria, and it's also a federal flood control project. And those are some significant walls that literally and figuratively around what we can do and can't do. So related to that, a couple issues and concerns. So our existing programs for inspecting and enforcing post-construction, so during development, erosion sediment control, pond construction, if development increases, staffing is going to need to be increased there. I've mentioned that for years. So that's an ongoing issue. Significant deferred maintenance. This impacts flooding and water quality. And so this is both city and private facilities. Tom is really ramping up this with the street department. But one of the things we're hoping to work on now is developing guidance, thinking about this deferred maintenance citywide. That's both city issues and private issues. So developing a stormwater management program plan, which facilities the city will maintain, how, coming to council with that, a capital improvement plan. So where do we need new facilities? And a private facility maintenance program. And so how are we going to maintain these private ones? We have a city staff inspect them. Who does the work on private facilities? Do we want, how much involvement do we want the city there? So I talked to you, I think it was a month or 2 months ago, briefly touching on this. This is going to be a chunk of work to come back as a team and really give you a plan that you can give us some guidance on for all of that issues. And then funding for stormwater management is not tied to services provided, so we're highly dependent on tax revenues, and so all of that links it together. So finally, we are getting a new stormwater permit. We'll start in fiscal year 2019. I expect the final draft permit will be out within a couple weeks. And it's going to require some more interdepartmental coordination related to stormwater. It requires the stormwater management plan to be developed and implemented, but it will help give us clarity on exactly what staffing needs, what equipment needs across the city. So my goal is ahead of this 2019 that we know where we're going, and so we have ample time to budget appropriately once we get the new permit, and so we have some improved coordination. And then we have the River Vision. It is costly to implement it. I just learned from the Army Corps that if we're going to look at redoing the flood control capacity and the vegetation requirements, they said, okay, great, here's the process. Good luck, getting approved, but it is going to cost about $1 million, and half of that's on you. So be back more to talk to you about that later, but there's big numbers. It costs a lot just to plan, costs a lot to do it, but if we don't do it, we know our walls are going to fall in someday. And so there's challenges there. Nothing that needs to be decided short term, but it is it does impact stormwater and water quality and our total maximum daily load, so our requirements with the local DEQ regarding how we are going to improve water quality in the Portneuf River. So the flood control project is going to impact the water quality in the Portneuf River that the city's responsible for. So there's work, there's job security. So that's, any questions on all that? That was a lot I just
But if you look at our river, it's different than a lot of other rivers. I mean, it just is. So the comment that I want to make was, when you look at what we do in the city, and it's relevant and it's great, but if you look at what our river has looked like for the last 2 months and looks like today, it makes it seem like what we're doing to be really insignificant in the whole scheme of things. If you were somehow able to measure the load that goes down that river, what we're doing is really insignificant compared to it's chocolate brown right now, and it's been that way for a couple of months.
That's a great point. And so so it depends on the time of year. So at this time of year, we have a relatively insignificant contribution to it. The load coming down from the agricultural runoff is huge. In the summer, we have this other challenge that the agricultural runoff is limited because the flows are low, because agriculture has taken out the flows. And so we have a very small river in the summer, but the city's contributions are pretty high then. And so we have a disproportionate impact. You know, our contributions are exacerbated because there's no water in the river. So the whole idea of pollution is the solution, and when you don't have that. And so that's our challenge. But we have pipes, and we are regulated. So
If you look at the water coming down the streams, for example, now Gibson Jack, just an example, it's crystal clear.
Yep.
But the water in the river is chocolate brown, and it's still high. And the other question I have about that too is when you look at the vision of the river and how we're going to make that look and all that, I'm just wondering what that's going to look like after our spring runoff.
So that is a great point. So two things related to that. So yeah, Gibson Jack looks beautiful. City Creek, a little less beautiful, but pretty good. City just invested a lot of money in researching Marsh Creek with Idaho State University and how to improve water quality there. So I'm hoping this summer they're finishing up their study, and to have them come and present to this council. They've been presenting to the Soil Water Conservation District and the water quality community about here's what we see as possibilities that will work for improving Marsh Creek as a state and an area. We've spent millions up there already, made some improvements, but obviously our water's still brown. So if we want good water quality in Pocatello, we know we need to look upstream. That's where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of on-the-ground improvements. And then related to the river vision, yes. So if we have this beautiful, if you look at Sacagawea Park right now, where it's flooded, there's about 6 inches of mud on top of the Greenway Trail. And so that is going to be critical to the design of whatever's designed. Is can we remove it? Can we get if you get an inch of mud, the grass will grow up through it. We all see that in our yards. The grass will grow up through it, and in a month it'll be beautiful. But 6 inches of mud is a little more challenging. So I've been talking with Utah State University, and this came out of the River Vision, was we needed to look more closely at implementation and what it would look like. And so their landscape architecture program wants to come work with us this fall and possibly next year, and they've got some internationally recognized landscape architects helping run this, and to come and really help us plan out what this would look like, and also looking at land use. And so, because if we spend, even if it's not public dollars, we have private dollars, and we spend $1 million or $2 million on a park, and then we let 5 people buy up all the land around it, and they put it in their single-family homes. Well, we haven't really done anything for the community. We've made a really nice park for 5 people. And so just thinking about if we're going to spend $2 million on Memorial Park or something, or Centennial Rainy Park, $500,000, what kind of land use do we as a community want there? What kind of economic development? And so they'll be, with council approval, be coming to you for an MOU for a contract for them to do that. So I will come back on that. But that is a really great point, Gary, of, when we have high flood waters, we don't want it to ruin something nice, and that needs to be carefully considered.
I've got some questions. Again, this is a very nice, warm, fuzzy presentation here. I want to go to some of these accomplishments and measures of effectiveness. You say you nearly completed the stormwater map and model to enable the development of stormwater management. Are you doing that, or is GIS?
We hired Murray Smith and Associates to do that.
Okay, so we hired that out.
We hired that out. We do not have the capability. We are doing the map internally. So Shane Chacon, stormwater technician, is doing the map, but the model, we don't have the capability internally to do that. So we're using the same company that does our water model and our sewer model, and they're using the same program, so there's possibilities down the line. And there's certainly, I think, a relevant conversation for all of you with Jeff would be, hey, is this something where we can hire somebody who can, with modeling experience? But we didn't have that capability. We looked at it for a long time, and we tried to do it internally and couldn't.
Okay. And then you do a good job of community awareness and engagement under that knowledge engagement. Improve quality of stormwater post-construction analysis and plans. So that, it says plans submitted by engineering firm, right? So that was another outsourcing.
No, so we developed a new stormwater manual to get, so internally, so, and at that time.
So when you say we wrote that.
So I facilitated Merrill Quayle and Mike Jaglowski and Steve Smart, and we met, every other week for 6 months, and took manual, I stole from other cities.
So our engineering department put that together with your oversight?
With my, yes, yeah, so I facilitated that development, yes.
Okay, and so reduced erosion and sediment track off on city streets. Who facilitated that? Is that streets? Is that?
That's going to be a combination again. So this department facilitates the training of contractors. We outsource the training, but we require the training. We develop the training. And then building works with residential development. And then science and environment works on commercial and subdivisions in partnership with engineering, and we all support each other. I mean, because whoever's on a site might see something and tell the contractor or developer, hey, look at this, and we try and make sure that we're working in coordination and limiting the number of back and forth trips to a site.
You ever make them clean it up when they don't do what you tell them to do?
We work really hard. That was yesterday, was driving around with a bunch of red tags. I was out with Lynn, and we got compliance without having to give the red tags, but we'll be back out today to see if they pull. But that is an ongoing challenge.
Okay, so you have, okay, now under issues and concerns, stormwater permit, the NPDS permit.
Yes.
How many NPDS permits does the city of Pocatello have?
We have stormwater, wastewater, pre-treatment. Is John here? I think there's 3.
3.
Maybe 4 with biosolids is probably.
Okay, 4. So, and who writes those and submits them?
So for stormwater, I do that. So the current one, the new one in fiscal 2019, the EPA has written a general permit for the entire state. And so everybody except for the Boise area, all of us that are small, under 100,000, have the same permit. And so I've been spending a year commenting on the preliminary drafts. And so I've been working with internal, mostly engineering staff on and public works of here's what the issues are, as well as getting Bannock County and Chubbuck and ITD and ISU up to speed and understanding their comments or concerns so that I can convey those to.
So ultimately what you're saying is you comment and EPA writes the permit.
Then this is that, yes, this just started. It used to be we wrote it and they commented and changed it. Now
they write it and you comment.
We comment, yeah.
Okay, the other permits.
I believe those are, so they are individual permits, so we're the only entity that gets them, and that's just they're gonna work with WPC staff entirely. So
WPC writes those permits?
Or EPA writes them and WPC comments. I couldn't tell you the specifics.
Okay. All right. Where I'm going with this, Hannah, is who's responsible for, again, I'm getting to this because it was a big thing in the news and such, and it's the dewatering station we had on Scotts Road.
Yeah.
So who's responsible for the Tier 2 permit? that the DEQ said that we did not have for that dewatering site?
So that's a good question. So DEQ, we were all catching up on that. I didn't know that we were doing sump waste. I knew we were doing stormwater. I should have known about that stormwater required a tier 2. DEQ didn't know that we needed a tier 2 till a month ago either for stormwater waste. So
No, but they probably didn't know that we had the stormwater dewatering thing.
they were aware of that. They were aware. They had visited.
I know there was a change in the law, okay?
There's a change in interpretation of
You're right.
permit requirements. And so I think it's an issue of really what we don't have is we haven't had enough coordination and knowing what's.
Well, you're saying coordination. Ultimately, who's responsible for the permits for the city?
We don't have, there's no, I do stormwater, the stormwater NPDS.
That's all you do?
That's the only one I do. So I am moving forward facilitating this tier 2 permit for stormwater. But you bring up a really good point of, we have a lot of historic practices that we're catching up on.
We have a department that's health, science and environment? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, they are responsible for stormwater discharge mm-hmm. and those things, and improving the port enough.
Yes.
And right now, then not much else.
Primarily, I deal with the Portneuf River, yes, and stormwater. That's most of my time. I thought what we were doing was correct. It wasn't, and so I take full responsibility on that. I should have spent more time overseeing that. Didn't realize, didn't know, and that came up. So that is a situation, a historic practice. Heard it was fine. No, it wasn't, and we're.
Well, and the reason I'm getting this is because the world I come from, I was brought in to start a whole new department. Okay. Things changed 5 years, and they come to me and said, well, we decided we're going to go back to our core businesses. You've got to be able to justify why we're spending the money here. Okay.
Okay.
And again, this is what I'm trying to do on departments is what bang for the buck, or what benefit, or who's accountable for what. Okay. And we've got to define those roles, because we can say that, well, it wasn't that bad because DEQ didn't fine us. I don't think you could say that if it would have been a private business that would have had this problem. I can guarantee you there would have been fines associated with it. And again, I'm just trying to get a handle on who's accountable for this permitting.
And I think that needs clarity. I am fully responsible for the stormwater permit, the NPDS permit.
Well, let's go figure that out.
So yes, and I think through our new permit, and one of the things that was raised with this Craft Road issue was sort of the need for more coordination between all the departments and additional sort of oversight. I spend a lot of time telling people what they can't do, and so that is where the city's going to need to go. And so with the tier 2 permit with this, if I'm writing it or working with DEQ on it, then I become responsible, to make sure that it's done correctly. So I see sort of historic practices. It's a challenging one.
And you've already started with creating some collaborating sessions with staff, because I know I've been invited to one.
Yeah.
And so, I think she's already starting to make procedures or developing communication so that we can be on board as a whole.
But there's a cross between the work WPC does of inspecting, these sump facilities, what's a stormwater, and one of the challenges in the state of Idaho is when I started looking into the sump waste is we don't provide much guidance at all. So I was told to go read the IDAPA regulations, and I would find my guidance in there. So if I go to the state of Washington, there's a nice 3-page pamphlet, and there's it's attached to the stormwater permit. But DEQ we don't like to make rules in Idaho, and so that complicates. And so I'd say statewide, there are a lot of challenges with the sump waste. And so there's a lot of communities that are going up. And so nationwide in the 80s, private facilities got dinged by EPA for their sump waste, and that's really run through. And now we have municipal facilities in states like Idaho where we have fewer regulations that are getting brought in, and the same thing for our stormwater catch basins. What exactly is the correct protocol? And so a lot of it is us catching up and going, oh, okay, our historic practice, we can't just do what we did historically, and actually learning that there is a regulation there.
Well, and again, whoever's accountable, we spend a lot of money on paying people to, in my mind, to keep us up to speed. And again, I'm not going to apologize for this, because when you get to science and environment, that kind of jumps into my world of expertise and passion. And so this issue with DEQ is a much bigger issue than it was made out to be.
Explain.
Well, not having a Tier 2 permit. Somebody needed to be on top of the interpretation by the state of DEQ changing the interpretation of law. That happens all the time with government. I mean,
and we were. As soon as they changed that, as soon as our local DEQ office knew, we knew as staff.
Well,
within about 2 days.
The reason everybody knew is because the media knew. Okay.
Yes.
That's not the way we should be doing this.
No, we should be.
We should be having that done so that the media has no story to report. That's in the world with which we live. That's how we should do it. And so, thank you. I mean,
you are heard, and I think we need, with all of these historic practices related to our waste management, is again going through them with a fine-tooth comb. And so my intent this year, and this ties into our new stormwater permit, and it wasn't in our old one, is we're going to be developing stormwater management protocols.
Well, we're paying.
I will be developing.
Sanitation is asking for $10,000 to pay for transportation and disposal of these sumps and stormwater. So
everybody will be paying now more.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go to the financials.
Yeah, we'll go.
Just real quick. So I have it right in my head. Well, that's a whole other topic. There's a lot of things. So traditionally, historical practice is each department's in charge of their own permit.
Beyond stormwater, I guess.
Yeah, all right. We each department manages their facilities, their waste. And we have a lot of. It's like, I think you've asked Tom to come talk to you about fleet management. We all buy our own stuff. We manage our processes, and we have a little bit of oversight in various areas, from science and environment related to stormwater, from the pre-treatment program related to what goes to the sewer. But each department is responsible.
Would you think that there's some justification to give those oversight of those permits to science and environment?
I think with the exception of the wastewater treatment stuff, that they manage what goes to the treatment plant in that process. I think there's probably a lot of justification for saying, yeah, one entity or and understanding what the permits are. I don't know if we have other permits for other programs. I assume we have some other permits in the city, but that I am not aware of. I do think that additional coordination, even thinking about this disposal of waste, that we can probably have one contract with one rather than 5 different contracts, so sanitation contracts with Larson and fire contracts with Roto-Rooter, and a very dispersed mechanism. And so there's a lot of opportunity to consolidate that if that's a direction council wants to go, and sort of coordination that would help, because otherwise we operate in silos and we just don't know what other people are doing, and we don't see it because they say, hey, we're fine, and you go, okay, you're fine.
I'd like to see what that would look like.
Well, yeah, because what you're saying, I mean, here's you say stormwater, okay? Let's not differentiate what WPC discharges into the river, but into the Portneuf. But that ultimately, I mean, you've talked about the Portneuf extensively. Okay, stormwater discharges into the Portneuf. WPC discharges into the Portneuf. Okay.
Yeah.
It all either goes to the atmosphere or to the ground and river.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. Up, down, or downstream.
And Councilman Brown brought up a great, we need to centralize that because beyond that is, look, I mean, if you take on the surface of what you can see sometimes with the environmental fair, and you're going to get more questions on the budget, but it looks like we're more of a PR outreach program than a science and environment program.
Okay. So I think, some cities are organized where they're environmental programs. So there's sanitation, their WPC, their water, they're grouped together as there's an environmental division or upper level, and it says, hey, these programs are under this, and so you have an oversight versus the city set up, and we put science and environment in at this weird division level. We're not a department, and we said, hey, you do your stormwater thing, and you sort of see what other people are doing and make sure their stormwater programs are in line. And that doesn't lend towards, it doesn't provide that sort of top level direction, and having a position or a person who says, hey, we're going to do this direction. And it doesn't mean you necessarily need to reorganize the city, but it is something to consider in terms of facilitating that coordination. And in particular, when we've had a lot of number of years without a public works director, that lends to even more siloing because we don't meet. And so to meet, you have to pick up the phone, call, arrange a time, you meet, but then you don't meet again because you're not, until you pick up the phone and call and meet and go to the, and so you don't have that natural coordination of somebody driving you forward. So it's great that we have a public works director again, and that can really facilitate this movement forward. But there is a lot, when we think about Craft Road, what do you do with the waste? You can compost it. You can do biosolids with it. You can bring it to the landfill. There's a whole number of options. But you need somebody who is in charge of all these departments who can say, hey, you're all going to work together, and here's the solution. And the way we're set up is we haven't had that.
Because we could have 10 departments that have sumps and they're all doing something different.
Yeah, and I sent out an email, and I'm just trying to learn who has a sump, and people are like, I think I have a sump over here, right? And so just trying to understand what we have, we're catching up there. So, and that wasn't your full question, and I forgot, I should have written it down.
One of the things that Mike mentioned was that there's a lot of he said PR education.
Oh, yes.
And I really believe that is a historical role that you stepped into, because a lot of our permits require that we educate the city so that our citizens are participating in stormwater management, so that they know that if they fertilize and it gets in the street, it's going to go to the river. They know if they create dirt and stuff that goes in the street, it gets in the river. So that's part of the role that I believe the city created the environmental division. It was there before I came in, was really to get the education component going. I think some of that has to do even with some of our air quality permits and things like that. There's always a component of education that we have to fulfill in order to qualify for different permits.
I understand that.
We do that. We take, that's in our stormwater permit, so it's about 1/3 of our permit is focused on education, outreach, public participation. The wastewater permit has that, and so the environmental fair, we do a lot for them there. And then I know water has a bunch of requirements for education, outreach. And then the other, I spend, it sort of looks like a lot of education outreach sometimes, but there's a lot of education outreach that goes to coordinating with the various groups that are interested in improving Pocatello's water quality and the DEQ, and coordinating with elected officials in other cities, and just spending time with the contractors.
This is a mud pit of all sorts of special interest groups. I understand that. So,
well, and I was.
You want to talk about global warming?
Yes,
I can remember when we created Science and Environment. It was part of the permit, and that was one of the major things was the educational part, that we were dictated that we would start doing that process, and that's when Fund 17 was created.
Well, and that's fine.
That was part of the NPDES
right.
permit.
Yes. But from time to time, we have to look at these things and what we're doing, because Mr. Moore here has somebody that's still shooting their grass into the street that just drives him nuts. So we're not reaching that group. Or
yes, it does.
An age group, okay?
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is accountability, okay? Who is responsible for permitting in the city? Two, because I understand the educational process has got to go along with these permits. Two, then, is how do we reach more people? I understand that these environmental fairs are great for bringing the young kids and get them exposed, but for the people that are, I don't know, 40 plus, that don't care.
And so that is what actually, so will come with this next permit, is we're going to be choosing groups to target, and so saying, all right, the grass clipping.
Yeah, go to the senior citizen center.
Those are the folks. But I really like to look at a behavior I want to change. So start with, what is the behavior that's the problem? Is it because it's not saying, so it's the people who are dumping grass clippings in the street, and who is it? Is it the 40-year-olds? Is it the companies? Is it the 12-year-olds who are trying to make their summer income, and targeting that particular group of folks, which you may never see any of that PR, because I want to, and maybe it's a matter, it's not because it's not going to be a TV ad. It might be a matter of me sticking things on their windshields, and I decide that's the most effective way to get them to change their behavior. And so that's where I like to go with my education outreach, is what are the behaviors that are problematic. And so doing that a lot with erosion and sediment control. But
let's go to the budget.
Oh, okay.
We got another question.
I really, this is kind of an assessment. I really think Mike and Steve have brought up a good point. It behooves us, I think, as we move into an even more sensitive environment in the years ahead, that we should have a go-to person for all the departments, and they should work in conjunction even with the wastewater treatment plant, because the old idea that two heads are better than one. I just think that we have the potential to really solidify our management of all that we do so that our effect on the river is minimal.
And I think that is a great point, because actually when Greg Lanning did a lot of that, that was his background, was DEQ, and he did the railroad issues. He did the wastewater treatment plant working with WPC. He did stormwater working with Science and Environment. And when he left, I just took the stormwater part and I took the railroad part, which is awful, and saw the 10 binders. But that was the only parts I knew of. And so I think that what were the remaining things that he was doing related to this environmental oversight, given his background that got dropped, and assessing that. And we probably could figure that out pretty quickly and make sure that, and whether it's this division is charged with that or somebody else, that's a great point.
Okay.
Ready for budget? Okay, so personnel wages, benefits, medical, benefits other, we have an overall increase of $10,225. This incorporates the hybrid, the change in the medical and the distribution, and the increase in the Percy. Overall, she has reduced her budget by $26 in the capital and operating. Her funding sources are intergovernmental, so the other government agencies that make contributions, that's what's projected. The $337,471, that comes from water and WPC, and based on what she does, which impacts their worlds. So that's why they are the players and the payers in this. Overall, we'll be increasing the interfund charge here by, it looks like, an additional $7,000 to get that brought to balance. This budget is about 51% labor, and the remaining is operating and capital, and there are the 2 full-time. And here's the basic overall funding by our partners. 14% is the county, Chubbuck, and ITD, and 86% is the city, which is composed of 16% water, and 84% is WPC.
Okay, now with the statements that were just made, do you see any
Well, we'll have to relook at distributions.
anomaly there?
Well, the distribution would have to be looked at. If she starts playing a role in what we just talked about, and there's more departments that come into play.
Well, 84% of her funding is coming from WPC, yet.
Well, 84% of the 86% is kind of a hard one to look at.
The major source of that funding comes from WPC, and Science and Environment really doesn't deal with anything WPC does.
Well,
see what I'm saying?
but it was my understanding when this division was created, I know she made that statement, but when it was created, it was because of the NPDES, that permit, which is WPC. And so that's why this funding was set up as it was. If we are changing the purpose and the structure of what Science and Environment is doing, then yes, we're going to have to relook at the funding.
Well, absolutely. See, that's what I'm saying. So, on the budget.
And it was set up with the other idea that if we didn't address stormwater as an entity, then WPC's burden at the treatment plant was going to be greater. Right. That they were the end of pipe, and they were going to be the ones that had this implementation plan requirements. And so our total maximum daily load implementation plan sort of said, hey, we're going to set up this stormwater program and do these stormwater activities to get in compliance with our load allocations for the river that are probably related to stormwater, and we'll treat wastewater separately. And so that was the general understanding between the city and DEQ, and so.
Yeah.
But this happened before I arrived.
Yeah, I think there's a layer in your analogy, but okay. We increased supplies. I realize you decreased your professional services by 11,000.
Yes.
But you've increased your supplies by 11,000.
Yes,
35% increase.
Yep. One of the things that's come up is how do we monitor effectiveness? And so, and how do we have an effective stormwater model? So when new development comes in, we really understand their impact. And so we want to purchase one flow monitor to put into a stormwater pipe. It would be there permanently, and we could, one, show to the EPA DEQ here's the effectiveness of our program, and 2, develop a better stormwater model. We rented 4 of them for a month or 2 months. It cost us $10,000. We can buy one for about $10,000. So that was.
Okay, so you have a baseline already of
we have
discharge level.
we have a 2-month baseline, and we'd like some better data.
What you find now will not be the baseline. You've already established that.
Yeah, we have established a baseline.
Okay. But again, this $33,000, what's that typically going for? I mean, your $11,000 is to buy a monitor, right?
Yes. So supplies. So we have about all supplies. I have a couple thousand for, I don't know if a vehicle is in there, savings for a vehicle, erosion and sediment control outreach, just outreach in general is about $5,000. Repair of our monitoring supplies is probably in that $33,000.
Well, it's going to be everything through 33.
Thanks to Councilman Adamson here, Councilwoman Adamson.
Yeah.
I've got the breakdown.
Yeah, you've got the breakdown? Okay. And then software. Dennis, the GIS gave me a $14,000 bill for software improvements, and so I put that in there.
Okay, so explain this to me. In 2016, you had $10,000 in this entire budget for laboratory, which I'm assuming is sampling.
I've got it.
She's getting.
I'm getting her the same thing, so we know what we're looking at.
Last year was $4,000. Year to date, 37.
Which one are we looking at?
Right on account description, supplies, Fund 17, supplies, laboratory.
Laboratory.
Okay.
Yeah, they budgeted. They budgeted 11,000, or no, they expended 11,000 almost in 16. Budgeted 4,700.
But now we're going to ask for 18,000.
Well, what it tells me is that she's realigned her budget to put the expenditure where it's truly happening. She was covering it in other lines in prior ones, and so she's just trying to map it out and line it up appropriately, because obviously the 4,700 wouldn't be an accurate picture. And then also she has that flow meter in there, right?
Yeah, yes.
Because that would be a piece of equipment that would come through on the supply lines.
Okay, I got to ask you, how come you're paying for weed control and it's going out to areas that are managed by another department?
So just related to any new project we were doing, some weed control. We haven't typically actually spent much of that, so the street department is doing it. But we have City Creek that we manage as well, sort of. So we manage it with streets, and we manage it with Parks and Rec. And so it is there for weed control along the river if it was needed, in an area that wasn't a levee. I'm a department that gets into just about everybody's business a little bit, and so that is that one, and that's a historic one that it could certainly be revisited.
Well, we just need to have...
Well, in times, if they're doing work for, let's say, the purpose of another department, when I hear City Creek, I think, okay, that's parks. What we should be doing, instead of her building a budget and covering that cost, she should be doing the work. Supplies should be billed directly to the department that she's purchasing the supplies for, and we should be charging for the labor to that department. That's the transparency part of the cost of managing that department, whoever it is.
Yeah.
So if we're doing that, then we should.
But historically, we have managed City Creek, so maybe we shouldn't be. And so that's another.
And when you start getting into these collaboration meetings and some of this detail comes out, I think that you'll find that we will fine tune who's doing what and who should be paying for it. Would be my result of that.
Okay, we can go on here. So, really you're only taking care of stormwater, but we've got a 20% increase in purchase services. So
Decreased purchase services.
Yeah, that's the one that went down.
Oh.
Are you talking about professional services?
Well, it looks like it's in purchase services to me.
Purchased. Sorry, I was thinking professional. Professional services.
4099 is professional services.
Yes, and
All the
I
40s.
dropped those.
Yes. Let's see. So what did she do there? She had it.
Was it 100 and I went to 91?
Yeah, and I do have this year's budget, so I could probably tell you what was happening.
So I
Okay, so travel and meals somewhere is going, I mean.
It's 6301 is travel and meals.
Okay, and it's gone up how much?
it shouldn't have gone up.
About 2,000. So what's your total travel?
Yeah.
Meals, I mean,
All right, hang on.
this is what I always got drilled on is travel. Travel, meals and.
Okay.
'Cause you ordered
6301.
No.
Where's your 6301? Where can I see it? Oh, right here. She is budgeted 5,000 in 17, and her budget says 5,000 for travel and training in 18. Now,
It's tough to keep track of these
I'm
numbers.
looking at the right lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you exactly what I was thinking right then. I apologize on that one.
So that one stayed the same. It looks like where she really increased was advertising.
Yes.
Which is under 62.
And I moved some things around that were not under advertising that were essentially advertising. So I did a lot of movement of my budget to try and properly categorize.
Well, that's good.
So that's what you're seeing, a fair bit of movement that just reflects trying to make sure that I was putting things in the right category where I actually spent them. And so taking a little out of here and moving it there.
And that was a result when I initially started working with departments. I said, put your expenditures where they're occurring.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't just leave them in
Thank
a line
you.
so that it tells us a better picture of what's happening within those lines. And so any neutral positions where I'm moving it from one to the other, no increase to the budget, they were given that authority to do because we want them to do that for us.
Well, we got to be able to justify what we're spending and how we're
You bet.
spending it. I mean,
And that's part of it, is making it be transparent on what we're actually expending it for, so.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Are we finished with?
Any other questions? No. Okay.
Go back to the slides then.
When's lunch?
She's not requesting any additional budget authority, and she does not have any proposed fee increases. So that's it. Awesome.
I know.
What do you think?
I just have one last question. How much does the environmental fair typically cost?
The city?
Or to put on, or what's spent
Okay.
on advertising, it costs over?
Yep. So
Ballpark.
so we run the environmental fair through CCOG, Southeast Idaho Council of Governments. They're the fiscal sponsor for it. The city is a major sponsor of it, but it's a lot easier to get donations for the fair when it's not coming to the city. So just bear with that part. So it's about a $10,000 budget, and it is. The city contributes $1,000 cash and my time and a number of other staff members' times, and we have
And drip and drop shows up.
drip and drop shows up and all of that, and the rest of it is all public contributions. So our major sponsors include ISU, Simplot, Idaho Power.
Okay, so you're saying it takes $10,000 to put that on with sponsors and.
Yeah, and most of that we spend $1,500 on ads. So pretty cheap. We get a lot donated. We spend a lot of money getting people there by giving free hot dogs and free baked potatoes. And so money goes to that and paying musicians a meager amount. People give generously.
But the city is $1,000 plus.
$1,000 plus time.
Your time and
Yeah.
whatever.
And so one of the things I'm looking at next year, because as much as I'd love it, I would love to spend my time on other things, is actually hiring an intern, taking that $1,000 and putting it towards an intern who could get great benefit of learning how to run an environmental fair. And that would free up my time and might make the event more sustainable for when I really do burn out of putting it on. And so.
Well, it's always interesting that all of your high-end paid jobs, like with pharmacists and doctors and such like that, it's amazing how many of them have to do rotations that they don't get paid for. again, I think we've got a huge resource up here as we try to improve our relationship with ISU. Sometimes it's maybe necessary to pay somebody, but again, that experience of doing it is worth quite a bit.
Yes.
And so sometimes we don't have to be paying somebody,
if I can get them for free, that would be great.
Yeah.
But if I can give them pay for their 400 hours, it's going to be pretty minimal. If I can get $1,000, especially because I'm going to get somebody who's going into poli-sci or education, and so they do not have a very big paycheck at the end of their.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I think what we'll do is go ahead and break for lunch, and we'll come back and do the revenues at the end of.
Sounds good.
It's open lunch.
Welcome back from our lunch break, and we'll move on to the next section of our budget meeting.
Okay, we're going to look at the revenue estimates and other selected topics for fiscal year 2018. On the agenda are the major non-property tax revenues. We look at sales tax, highway user, franchises, etc. There's about 10 items that we'll be taking a look at specifically. And also our property tax situation, inflation, and real growth. This is the overwhelming slide of all the items we're going to talk about in detail, so I'm not going to go into detail here, but it kind of gives you the history, and you'll see that on each one of the individual slides for each topic. So we begin with sales tax. 11.5% of sales tax is divvied into the revenue sharing. So 0.7 cents of every 6 cents that is collected comes in to the cities, and then is allocated based on population. So what you can see is the 5-year actual trend, the prior 12 months, and what we budgeted for fiscal year 17. As you can see, the prior 12-month trending is right on target for our fiscal year 17 budget. So that takes about half of 2016's numbers and half of 2017, because that's all we have to this point. The AIC, the Association of Idaho Cities, has estimated that revenue sharing for our city is forecasted to be $4,548,428. Our prior 12-month actual supports the AIC fiscal year 17 forecast, and that also kind of provides us some assurance that those estimates are pretty accurate. So I guess at this point, I would probably go with the recommendation of following the AIC estimate of an increase of $148,428.
I agree.
So, are we good with that?
I think we're good.
Okay.
If not, if they're wrong, we'll send them a bill.
Yeah, see, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
If
only it worked that way.
Yeah, I know. We can wish
stop
upon a
giving
star.
us estimations.
Who's the president of that organization?
For about 20 more days, and that's it.
That's called moving it from one pot to the other, all in the same pot.
Just hand it over, and I'll just pass it on.
This slide just kind of goes into the information on how sales tax is distributed within the state. We get a state distribution and a county distribution. The state distribution is based on assessed market value and population. The county distribution is based on the 1999 distribution plus 5%, and then the excess is distributed based on population. So they're both very uniquely placed, shall we say. Highway user money. As you remember, back in, I got to remember, July of 2015, we increased the highway user tax from 25 cents to 32 cents, and also increased some of the registration fees. 32.33% local, of which 70% goes to counties and highway districts. The remaining 30% goes to cities based on population. So I provided you with the 5-year actuals and the prior 12-month trend, and then the fiscal year 17 budget. As you can see, our 2016 actual is almost a mirror of where we are 12-month trending. So it's a pretty strong forecast of where we're heading. It could actually slightly increase above that. Now, AIC has informed us that they believe it'll be about $2,450,074. So we're either looking at an increase of $100,074 to this revenue, or we could look at $141,150 based on the trailing 12 months. I guess I believe there's strong support to look at the trailing 12 months at this point.
Well, can we make it?
125.
That's fine.
Yeah, like make it $2,475,000 or something.
Yes, that would be about another 25. Just make it even.
Yeah, just say 125.
Now again, I got a question here. Sales tax, that money comes in and goes into the general.
That's general fund. Highway user money comes into street.
As where? To street. See,
It is.
So that's, okay,
It's defined and is restricted to street purposes.
Right. So street. 2,400,000. See, that's where it gets a little confusing. Is because we got two different. Well, we got more.
Well, you could move sales tax anywhere, but generally
Right.
speaking,
But
people
user
use it in
fee,
the general fund.
We can't. So.
Yeah. So. And I need to make notes here so that I don't forget what we're agreeing to.
So $2,475,000.
And 1 penny.
And 3 cents? 72.5 cents.
I have a hard time with those halves.
Yeah.
Actually, shall I tell you, in the budget world, there are no pennies.
That's right.
Or in the budget program. Okay. Bannock County Road and Bridge. This one's kind of a tough one, so I'm going to try to explain to you what happens here. This is remitted to the city through the Bannock County property tax remittance on every month. So you can see the trend from 2012 through about 2014 was pretty consistently around 350 to 390 range, right? Then we hit 2015 and we went up to almost 600,000. And then of course in 2016, a big windfall, we went up to 1,054,000. The trailing 12 months is 962,000, and we budgeted 690,000 fiscal year 17. The problem with this one, and I've already spoken with Christie in the county, and they're in the middle of their budget, but this is determined by how much is levied by the county, plus how much highway user money comes in to Bannock County Road and Bridge. So we're a large percentage of that, so we do get quite a few dollars from it, but based on what they decide within their budget dictates how much this money stream becomes, okay? And that's the reason why you're seeing this kind of fluctuating amounts. When I spoke to her, she said, well, we have a new public works director, and given our past situation with the past director, she said I would be cautious here because I'm not sure which direction we're going to go in with the levy, how much we're going to take. Although I did speak with him yesterday, and it indicated he had some major needs, so I still don't know what that's going to mean to us.
So they control the levy, and they control how much they get out of that money, and then what gets passed on to us?
How it gets analyzed is based on, I believe it's miles of road within the county.
Okay.
So there's a percentage of
Yes,
that.
we get an allocation of it.
But
Okay.
that money's based on that percentage of what they take in the levy.
Well, yeah, if they drop their levy, because she said what they did in 16 is they had a lot of needs, so they took a lot more dollars. She felt like it was going to drop back, and based on the levy rate, I would have to agree with her, because it was at one point, then it went up, and then it dropped down about half of that. So I'm not sure what's going to happen this year. So we could play it safe, and we could stick with our current budget amount. There's two ways you could look at this. You could say, okay, I could build a budget, and I could say, Tom, what's a one-time capital purchase that you would need? If the monies roll in and it comes to fruition, we'd execute. If it doesn't, You wouldn't execute, you're not spending reserves you shouldn't be spending. The other option is to wait and see, and if during the execution year of fiscal year 18, you realize more monies are going to come in, we do what we do, and we amend the budget, and we choose to spend something on a one-time capital purchase, and that's another way to look at it.
So how much would the levy have to drop to take us from 962,000 trending to 690,000?
I'd have to do some calculation. I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's kind of amazing. But see, the hard part of this too is highway users playing a role in here. We all know that highway user money went up between 15 and 16 and 17.
And we're going to have an influx in August. We know it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just, this is one of those numbers that is really, really hard to predict because we're not controlling very much of it.
Let's go conservative.
700. Let's just round to 700,000.
I'm thinking 750, quite frankly. As I'm looking at what the county's got in the future, I'm thinking they're going to end up taking everything.
Well, yeah, they got to replace 200 trees up at the
But I don't disagree because you're trending at $962,000. To go to 690, that's a 25% decrease in the levy, which I don't know what that equates to on percentages, but.
Well, and I was looking at it when I first looked at it before I spoke with Christy. I thought, well, I'd be conservative because I know there's a lot to this one, and I was even thinking 100. But when I spoke to her, she thought that was maybe a little too aggressive. So the 750 might be an even.
Okay, I can go along with that. That goes back. That's normal.
So what is that change from last year's budget? What did we appropriate or expect?
You mean fiscal year 17?
Yeah.
We budgeted 690,000.
Okay, so we're up in 60,000.
Yeah, we're just upping it by 60. Is that the number I'm putting in then?
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, building permits. We look at a couple of markers on this one. The 5-year actual trend, you can see we're kind of a little all over the place, aren't we? We go from 380,000 up to 861,000. Our prior 12 months was at 854,000, and we budgeted 675. Now, I can tell you in the 16 and in the trailing 12 months, we are dealing with the fact that Great Western Malting's permits were very, very large. Right. It was over 400,000. And we split those between 2 years. That's why you're seeing it on both sides. That is for that major expansion that they did out at the Great Western Malting plant, okay? So part of this big increase that we're seeing is related to that. When I spoke with Lynn, he didn't know of anything immediately on the horizon that's in front of him right now to project another major player. Him and I both discussed it, and we felt like probably staying with the 675 is the best result. If you really wanted to go conservative, you'd drop it to probably the 2015 at 631. And you can see on the building and construction activity, we increased permits sold went up by about 300, let's say 300, and license and permit fees collected went up by, well, it's 29% there. No, that's the 5-year change. 220, and then permit valuation. But when you look at the valuation and you throw Great Western in there, that's going to throw this thing off on that side. And then new 1 to 2 families, about 20. And then inspections. So this is one of those where it's hard to predict what's going to happen because we don't have anything in front of us at the moment. Although I think we're seeing growth, and so if you're seeing growth, you know things are going to be at least that. And here's the worst case scenario. Let's say you go conservative, then what happens is you're going to have more revenues than you expected. You could reopen your budget to expend those revenues for a purpose, and then you know as you roll forward what to expect on a more concrete basis. So it's a couple of ways of looking at it.
I'd go 675.
I'm comfortable with that.
Leave it there.
675?
Yep.
So that's a zero in terms of
Well, yeah, it's a zero increase, but we leave the 675 in the system. I don't have to make any changes.
Yeah, I'm
what
just
you're telling
trying to
me.
see where we're headed.
Yeah. Natural gas, that's 3% of gross revenues and that's fee for use of public right-of-way. Revenue goes to the general fund in fiscal year 16 and 17. We altered that when we were dealing with our levy limitation. It's our choice where we choose to send those dollars, so that was a legitimate. And frankly, prior to, I'd have to go back to which year, it had always been in the general fund. Of course, it's influenced by natural gas commodity prices as well as the growth and severity of a winter season. 2012 to 2016, we're pretty consistently between 350 to 385, 385 being one of the high end in 2014. Our trailing 12 months is 360,000, and we are budgeted at 365. I would leave this one alone and just leave it at the 365.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay.
They just went to PUC to ask for an increase, first time in a while.
They're going to have an increase.
I think so.
Really?
That's been a while.
It's been a long time.
Has it been a long time?
Usually the decrease.
I'm okay with 365, and then we'll just,
Are you suggesting that we might be able to go more?
He says
there's a possibility.
gas
Stay with
Let's stay at 365, but I think we'll get more.
gas prices, I mean, they're just
365.
down to...
Okay, state liquor tax. In fiscal year 17, 50% to the states, 50% remains, of which 40% goes to counties, and it's distributed based on sales, 60% to cities, and of this amount, 40% to cities with liquor stores based on sales. So this goes to the general fund. Our current budget is $575,000. The AIC does not make an estimate here. There's some influence with our local sales. And you can see we were at 587, 600,000, 576,000, 570, 2016, 604,000, which is our strongest of the 5 years. We're trailing, the 12-month trailing is 575,000. I guess I looked at it and I felt like we could stick with the 2016 number at least and go to the 600,000. It's about a 25,000 increase.
It's okay with me.
Yep,
Okay. 575.
for 600.
You go 600?
Isn't that where we at?
Yeah, we're in the budget at 575,
Yeah,
but
she said go-
go to 600?
2016.
Actually, that's the
was-
600,000.
All right.
Because we have all those travelers coming in, right?
Trying to figure out what we can do to get people drinking more.
That's right.
Have more, what is it, Five Alive or
Revives at 5.
Revive Five Alive?
Okay. General fund interest. Okay,
Feds are taking another interest rate increase.
yeah. Earnings from invested cash, most of it's in the state pool or the bank money market funds, or basically we have everything in the state pool at this point. Rates have remained low, but they're starting to climb, just like you mentioned. Utility interest income goes to the general fund. Prior years, that was not a comparable. And that changed when we had the capacity or the lawsuit that resulted in the stopping of the pilot transfer. So that prompted the allocation change. When that allocation change occurred, I was approached by my predecessor that he said that the state law lets us do this, so that we ought to do this. And I said, well, if the state law lets us, we should do it. I got a little nervous last year, and so when I went to the AIC conference, I spoke with Seth Griggs, the director, and some of the employees with the AIC. I asked him, I've been doing some research. I can't find the state law that says that you can take all the interest to the general fund, and I'm wanting to find that so that I can put that in our policy so that we know that we're hanging our hat on a law that gives us that right. And they told me there isn't a law. I had Rich Deal from our legal department do more research, and he couldn't find anything. He couldn't find any law that said you couldn't, and he couldn't find any law that said you could. So they're just basically, it's quiet on that front. Association of Idaho Cities felt like the utility funds should receive their share of the interest earnings. So based on that, these numbers are based on what we've been sending to the general fund. I would have to work up the allocation. I did kind of a rough review of the last 6 months. Basically, it's about a 50-50 between the utilities and the general fund, because general fund and all other funds are much healthier now, and because of that, our share is up there. Yeah, I mean, we're at half of what. So if we altered this allocation, that would take that down by $100,000, and I'd be giving more dollars to the sanitation, water, and sewer fund based on their values each month when we do the allocation. I'm looking towards you for guidance because I don't have anything that's definitive one way or another. I'm getting just the feedback from what the outside sources are telling me, plus the fact that I don't have any rule that if anybody debated this, I wouldn't have anything to defend it except to say we took all the interest. So
We looked at the law and allowed it because it didn't disallow it.
That's right.
say what?
We looked at the law and it allowed it because it didn't disallow it.
Well, and that's pretty much, it comes down to if someone debated it with you, would you be able to defend that? I'm taking these dollars, is it entitled to that fund? Because technically the monies that are in those funds are what are earning the interest. And so that's where the debate comes in. Could you defend that?
I think it should go to the funds where the money's coming from, myself.
I don't.
I think it ought to go to the general fund.
Well, because
Where the general fund is administering it and everything, our finances are doing all of that.
But we charge admin fees already.
And that would be the weakness in the argument is that we do charge an admin fee.
We need another $240,000
Well, then-
in admin fees.
then don't invest.
Well, you only need
Don't
100
invest
of
the
that.
money.
I just think you're doing a great job. Your predecessor was only getting 18 grand out of it. You're up to 203,000, so you're doing a pretty good job with it so far.
I'm 4 out of 4 on my magic 8 ball that says we shouldn't.
So that's not helping us. It's a great 8 ball.
Well, nobody has said anything to us at this point. We can do more research on it. I mean, this is one of those things where I've been trying to fit in and squeeze in analysis of this. I mean, it comes down to how comfortable you feel with it. We could try to look at it differently, but I still say there's a weakness in the argument.
And you're saying that we could take 100,000 and wouldn't have any liability towards those funds? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Well, we
You would
don't-
be reducing, 50% of that would be allocated to the general fund, and the rest of it would go to those 3 utilities. As the general fund, we're allowed to take from those other ones because we support and feed the other funds, and so that's the reason why you don't have to worry about that. But the utilities are all user fee based, and that's the reason why you would have a harder time arguing.
I'm leaning towards taking the 100,000 and releasing that 104 back to the utilities.
The distribution based on what I'm coming up with. Okay.
I'd
Gary.
like 225.
You like 225?
Well, and I'm trying to,
Well, okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Never mind.
Well,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We'll ask.
you won't know the answer to this.
Well,
If
then
you
it should
do,
be
you're
easy to
gonna know
answer.
question. Never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Well,
Okay, I'll try and answer it, but if I can't, I will tell you that too.
was interest taken into account when the rate studies were completed?
The rate study was completed in 2014. I'd have to go back to confirm. This all came down in November of 2013. We were right in the middle of the rate study, and I'm not sure, it could be that the interest is being allocated by the rate study there. It could be. I'd have to double check.
Well,
Because the timing's just about the same time.
the other side of it is you can say, okay, we're not going to invest that money anywhere in those reserves or what from those reserves. you
Yeah.
know. But again, I don't see a problem with the interest.
Being, what, staying in the general fund?
Because who's managing how that money's invested?
Well, that's my office.
Okay. See,
And general fund is managing what happens with it. So Gary,
I'm okay with that.
general fund?
Yeah.
Mike?
yeah.
Heidi? I'm okay with general fund.
I said 100.
I think so. It benefits the people that live.
Well, yeah, and we're so hamstrung on some of these other fees that we
Oh,
are.
204, you don't want the 225?
225.
Oh, 225?
Yeah.
I was talking 204, maybe. Are you good with 225?
Just by 21.
Okay.
You never know where that 21,000 is.
25, 225.
Because this next one's an interesting one that, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
This is going to go to
If we're going to run up from the utility funds, we might as well.
Oh, and where the 225 came from, I played a little conservative, but if you look at 2016, it was 247.
Yeah.
That's why.
One would think.
Okay, cable franchise. I wish I could say
Based on the rate
great
stuff.
things here, except that we really, I think we got it in the box for this year, because we are trailing at 238,000 for the 12-month mark. 2016 was 246,000, and we budgeted 240,000, but we continue to see decline, so we might want to take that down. I suggested
230.
10.
230.
Yeah, bringing it down to
Okay, I got 230, 230. 3 at 230.
Yeah, that's
4,
that's a
230.
that's a minus 10 for 10,000 there.
230.
Yes.
We recognize it's a minus 10 there, but
All right. City fines from the court system, that's magistrate court. They're sent to the general fund. We now put them into the police division.
That's not good.
This one's always a guessing game, because if you look at the 5-year actuals, we were at 288,000, then 249,000, up to 274, up to 320,000, then in 16 down to 243,000. We budgeted in fiscal year 17 294,000, and our trailing 12 months is right now is looking a little weak. But there is some delay in those receipts, so I mean, that could be why the trailing 12 months isn't telling us as good a picture as it should. So I guess, what did I say? I recommended the range. I recommended we drop a little bit back to the 2016 actual.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When did Ms. Ferris retire?
Oh, was that, I'm trying to think, was it last year or the year before?
I think it was the year before.
It was the year before, yeah.
Sometime in...
It would have been in...
I think it was 15.
It might have been fiscal year 16, but in November. So it was
Yeah.
November of 2015.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Just one of these,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
You
yeah, okay.
suggested
I
she
see
was
what you're
holding.
saying. Yep, I did.
Okay.
I caught it. Helps when it's 5 o'clock on Thursday, huh? Okay, so is the 243, is that what we decided?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Electric franchise, that's 1% of gross revenues. Fees for use of right-of-way. It had been in the street fund in fiscal year 16. It is now in the general fund as of fiscal year 2017. If we look at the 5-year past history, we saw climbing, and it's kind of hit kind of a plateau of around 430,000 to 432,000. So we budgeted 428,000 in fiscal year 17. The trailing 12 months shows 440,000, so I'm recommending the prior 12 months on this one. We're seeing some growth.
So if Idaho Power takes a decrease in fees, how does that impact this?
Well, it'll impact on your...
440?
Yeah, your gross revenues is going to go down, because we're unless we use more, but we're paying less for it. I mean, it all gets back to the usage side of this. But it could impact us.
Rocky Mountain Power just requested a price decrease.
Really?
Yeah, because of the lower cost of producing electricity. And so that's why I'm asking that question.
Well,
I've got 1, 2, 3 anyway that are 440.
I'll go 440.
We got 4 at 440. Let's put it in there.
okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, it's going to go down. I mean, it may be flat for the year or something. So.
Well, and even if we're only taking it up by 12,000, we're not taking it up by much from the prior year.
Idaho Power residential customers will see an increase in 2017.
Let's go to 450.
Idaho Power will?
Yes.
I was going to say, I haven't seen a decrease on that side of the world in a long time.
Well, Rocky Mountain Power is
High anyway.
Is
high end.
Well, they're up there anyway.
Yeah.
Pay a lot for inconsistent service over there.
Yeah, you do.
Are we ready to move on to the next one?
We are ready to move on to cemetery charges, yes.
Cemetery charges, this is charges for open and closed services and plot sales. This money is allocated to the cemetery fund. You can see the 5-year actual trend, 277,000, 284,000, 330,000. Then it dropped to 273,000, then it came back up in 16 to 332,000. Our trailing 12 months is 346,175, and our budget is set right now at 300,000. It's impacted by rates, interments, plots versus ash choices. It was impacted during the recession. I've already told you the current year budget. I recommend going with it prior 12 months.
I'd go 340 or 350. And the reason I'm doing some of this is it's just easier to keep these rounded numbers in your head rather than on paper. And I hate paper, so I have to try and shove them over here.
340?
340.
340?
Yeah.
Sure.
340.
We're with you on that.
Okay, property tax, our favorite topic. Okay, so I provided you with valuation numbers so you can kind of see where the actual dollars have been over the course of fiscal year 2006 to 17. I also provided you with a table here, and you can really see, I would say from about 12 through 17, it's roughly pretty flat there. Not minor changes, shall we say. On the property tax side, the prior year foregone is $1,719,683. So our foregone did go up. The reason why it went up from what we had last year is when you're looking at foregone, your bonded debt doesn't get added into the calculation. I actually had to email Gary Howd with the State Tax Commission because I thought, this doesn't make sense to me, you know? And so he went through the calculation, and now it makes sense, but it has to do with our animal shelter bond, and it's not calculated in that part of it. It's it's an exempt bond, and so that's the reason why your foregone actually went up. 3% allowance, $829,572. New construction last year came in at $203,455. So you have between foregone and the 3% an additional $2,549,255. I don't count the new construction there because I don't know what the number is. We're going to have to make a guesstimate here. But I will give you some information when I get to that slide, which is next. Okay, this just gives you a little history on new construction for the city. You can see the big blip years when major items, either the tip came off the tip district and came in, or we had the construction of the Portneuf Medical Center. Those were major changes to new construction during those times. On average, we're usually around 20 million. Now, to give you an idea, I spoke with Anita at the assessor's office, and she gave me some insight. They're still working numbers. They just barely are sending out the notices. Board of Equalization will be the next month, so they can't give me concrete information at this point, so this is all estimated.
Are they being a little bit more helpful this year?
Yes, a lot.
Okay, good.
So
we've had a number of discussions about that.
Yeah, and they are open, and I'm trying to make sure when I communicate with you too that you know I'm getting their numbers aren't solidified yet.
Correct.
So keep that in mind. Anyway, here's how the story goes, because I said, okay, I know we have the Caterpillar or the Western States. I knew that was happening. I also know Amy's Kitchen. I also know Great Western Malting. So the one that's impacting, we know will impact this new construction is our Western States. Roughly speaking, she says it might be a conservative estimate, but she believes 5 million is at least that. She believes the 20 million is a good conservative construction number. She said the numbers are looking positive. They reassessed, the reassessed area this year was in the Satterfield area, and she said, she told me about a month ago.
I know.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Me too.
But she said the numbers are looking favorable on both growth sides. So that being said, she felt like the 20 million for new construction was a good number. Keep in mind, next year will be the Great Western Malting Plant. It kind of passed the timeline this year, so it's not coming on this year. That one's a real positive, even with the tax abatement on both Western States and Great Western Malting. How that works is 75% has been abated, so for 5 years they get a break. So the 25% comes on the books. And so that's why we know that Western States is going to be 5, but in 5 years you're going to get that other portion, which is roughly, well, I don't know what I'm assuming it'd be another 15 million, but the numbers aren't solidified yet on that. It's just kind of a rough information at this point. Great Western, though, I love the numbers there, because next year, just with Great Western, we will have 20 million in new construction. In 5 years, we don't know the exact number, but it could be anywhere from the total amount that would come on would be between 80 million and 92 million, which means another 60 to 72 million in new construction in the year that the abatement falls off.
Okay, but here's the reality of that, is that of new construction, looking at the number here, okay?
Yeah.
The city ends up with just a little more than 1% of that. See what I'm saying? The ratio of new construction equates to about a 1% dollar figure for us. Okay. $20 million new construction, 222,000.
Right, because your levy, it's all depicted by your levy rate. You're taking that new construction, multiplying it by last year's levy rate, which produces
1.1 or something. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
1.108.
Well, it's 0.011111.
Well, yeah, whatever the zeros are. Okay. So I mean, to get $1 million based on the existing levy rate, we got to have $100 million of new construction.
That would be right.
Okay, so this is not a real big number for revenue as part of it.
It's good in that it provides these new dollars without impact, because it's new valuation coming on the books. Yep. Yeah, more is always better. In this particular case, some say less is better, but in this case, more is better. But it gives you an idea. Even, there's some arguments with tax abatements, but the fact of the matter is you brought the economic in, and you might take a little bit of a not receiving it immediately, but eventually within a short time span, you're going to receive that. Now, the other thing that is happening, and I had forgotten about, but 2019, which will be our next budget session, I believe the Naval Ordnance TIF, she was telling me that would be coming back in at that point.
But yeah, see, so I'm assuming like in 13 when the central corridor came, okay? Mm-hmm. Based on today's levy, that.
Well, the whole 11 million is not the central corridor. That was
right.
It was about 83 million,
that was a total,
I think.
But that, yes. If based on today's levy, that should have provided the city with about $1.15 million. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but it's based on the levy rate of the prior year at that time.
Well,
but as you go through time, if your levy rate goes up, even that valuation, you're going to receive more dollars based on that.
Okay, so what you're saying is next year or the year after, Great Western will come on?
It will come on for what we call our fiscal year 19. Okay. Tax year 18.
And that's somewhere between $15 and $20 million.
No, it'll be
5.
I think she strongly said it at least the 20 at that point. Okay. It'll be 25% of whatever the total valuation for the new construction with the certificate of occupancy at that time.
Okay, and she thinks that'll be how much?
Well, she said I knew that our valuation was somewhere around
20 million.
80 million, but I think it's a little higher than that, and she did too. She thought
Okay,
it could be up
but
to
say it's
92.
20 million, okay? This $20 million we're getting right now, it does not include that.
No.
So next budget year,
We could be
with that,
looking
we
at,
should have 40 million
we could.
or 50 million, which equates to about $500,000 based on today's levy.
Yeah.
So things are improving.
Yes, I would
Okay.
say that. Well, what you're seeing is indication of growth.
Right.
And that's what you're looking for. And those are all good circumstances. What did I figure? It was 2023 when Great Western will come in, because that's the 5-year mark. Because if it comes on for fiscal year 19, it'll be 2023 when we hit the 5-year mark, so it will start to roll in at that point. You're going to have a really good new construction for that year, and that will be a big help to the city at that point. But the fact that you have a few of these, you have Great Western. Here's your other big one, and I think she was saying it'll be 2020 on Amy's Kitchen. But Amy's Kitchen was all personal property, and because, so it was 100% abated. But in 2020, it's going to be, it could be like a 40 to a 45 million. It's going to be large dollars is what I'm saying. So that's all a very good positive thing. So if we start looking at this incrementally over the course of the next 5 years, we've set ourselves in a pretty good position with these 3 projects that came in with what the growth is going to look like. That's good for the city.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, thank you.
Inflation. CPI growth, it was 1.636%, so it went up from the prior year when it was at 0.17%, less than 0.25%. One way of also looking at how much should I take in property tax, should I take property tax, if you want to start kind of, how we do the rate study, and we determine the rates, and we do a percentage increase so that we never hit a big year where we have to take a lot of dollars. One way of looking at it could be to look at your CPI and say, at a minimum, I should be taking this much in additional dollars to help fuel the city and do the things that I need to be doing. That's one way of looking at it. It's just a thought. It kind of was going through my head as I was looking at this particular issue. That way you never hit a year where, oh my gosh, I need to take that, I need to take foregone, I need to take a whole bunch. But you've incrementally taken your increases as you've needed them to create sustaining services. Population, we dipped a little bit, but we're coming back up, would be my comment at this point. And I think, what is the census in 2020? Yeah. That'll firm up, and that will affect what happens with a lot of our revenue sources. So the potential for expanded growth is a good thing for us in the course of the next few years, because that would have a major impact at that point. Here's where we go forward. Decision sessions next week. It's following the regular study session. And then June 15th is another one, and then if needed, we have June 29th, July 6th, and of course, July 13th will be the last time I can get guidance from you. After that session, I have to basically have my final digest, produce my budget or my report to publish, because I have to publish twice before the public hearing on August 3rd. So our ability to make any changes will be that'll be our last session. And then remember, whatever I publish, if you want me to publish high, because we won't have valuation numbers in, at that point you need to inform me, and wherever I publish those additional dollars, it can't be moved to another fund. So let's say I published high by $100,000 in the general fund. I can't move that to the street fund or the airport fund. I have to publish where those additional dollars would be. Now, that doesn't mean I couldn't do a budget amendment, move it from general fund to any of those funds, because that's the right of the general fund, but I'm just letting you know in case you want me to do anything additionally at that time. I would need to have that guidance, and I'll remind you when we get there, but just an FYI that when we get to publication, you can't adopt an ordinance that's greater than what you published. Okay? And I guess I didn't have a decision slide for new construction. Do you want me to put that in? Do you want me to hold off, or what would you like me to do on new construction or property tax or any of those?
I think new construction, we just go ahead and fold it in. I think property tax, it's something we deal with as we
do the
see
tax solution.
where everything is.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at the 20 million estimate. Okay.
Right.
I can do that. That's pretty much everything I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions, council?
So at the next meeting, we'll know where we're at.
Yep, because everything that you've now decided, we're going to wrap up and roll everything into the budget, and then we're going to produce that digest and do the tax solution. That's where we'll be.
I'm going to be gone that week.
That doesn't surprise
I'm going
us.
to be here.
Well, I'm not either, so
On purpose.
then they're down to 4. That still works.
We work well together with the other 4.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your work, council. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned from this meeting, and we will see you at 5 or 5:30 or whatever time it is. Have our